The story starts in a magical world where 9 races live side by side, including the beast folk, dwarves, oni folk, demonkin, elves, dark elves, dragonutes, centaurs, and lastly humans, one of whom is a rookie adventurer named Light, driven by the hope of lifting his family out of hardship. Our hero says goodbye to his village and embarks on a quest in pursuit of power and prosperity. When he finally reaches the Grand City, he's hit with the harsh reality of discrimination as people sneer at him just for being human. Still determined, he walks into the guild to register as an adventurer, and is assigned an F rank since it's his first day. The receptionist asks if he has a special skill, and Light's face lights up as he proudly says yes. It's something called unlimited gacha. Curious, the girl asks him to explain it since she's never heard of such a thing before, but Light insists it'll be easier to show her in action. He pulls out his gacha device and presses it, creating a card right before her eyes. Beaming with pride, Light explains that whatever's on the card can be summoned, but his excitement dies fast when he realizes the first card's just a damn bent fork. Embarrassed, he laughs it off, saying it's just a failure, and tries again. But instead of something useful, out pops even more worthless crap, like a rotten apple and a piece of moldy bread. He insists it doesn't usually suck this bad, but she's already over it and just hands him his F rank card without another word. Still fired up, Light rushes to take his first quest. The receptionist points him toward the bulletin board, but the problem is that he can't read. In this world, that's not unusual since most humans barely know their letters. Thankfully, she helps him out and picks a few beginner jobs for him. They're all low paying, but Light doesn't care, because he's ready to work his ass off, and by the end of the day, he's completely drained. He's done several jobs back to back, and all that effort barely got him enough for a single night at an inn. Still, he tries to stay positive, saying that if his gacha can spit out something edible, he'll manage just fine. Then out of nowhere, a group of beastfolk thugs bump into him and start yelling like it's his fault for dirtying their clothes. Before he can explain, they snatch every coin he has, claiming it'll cover the laundry bill. Light pleads for them to give it back because without it, he won't even have a bed for the night, but they don't give a shit. One of them kicks him to the ground, telling him to go sleep in a pigsty, and they walk off laughing. The people around don't even lift a finger to help. Instead, they sneer and call him nothing more than worthless human garbage. Right then, a young woman lifts him up, yet Light notices she's an elf, and he's taken aback. He frantically apologizes for making contact with her, but the woman reassures Light that she will not harm him. Light cannot grasp why an elf would show kindness to a human like him, and the woman even embraces him. Spectators are appalled to witness an elf merely touch a human, and Light is completely stunned. This elf girl soiled her knees just to hold him, so he questions if he's dreaming. The woman assures him that he's not, and the rest of her companions introduce themselves. They state that they are members of the Concord of Tribes. It's the title of their group that represents all 9 races created by the divinity. The beastfolk names himself Garu, and the elf is Sasha. There is also Diablo the demon kin, Oboro the oni folk, and Drago the dragonute. Then comes Nano the dwarf, Sion the dark elf, and Santoru the centaur. That makes 8 members, so the party reveals that all they need now is a human to complete the set. Light is left speechless, so they clarify that their aim as a group is an honorable one. They want to wipe out racism in the world and build a future where every race stands on equal ground, and they want him to be part of it. But Light cannot believe what he's hearing, so the group's leader steps forward and promises that they mean every word, and just like that, Light agrees to join them, heart full and eyes shining. Sometime later, Light finds himself under attack by enormous serpents, and he has to be saved by Drago. Another creature almost creeps up on him, but Sasha is there to kill it. She cautions Light to be more cautious and reminds him that they're in the largest and harshest dungeon in the world, called the Abyss. If anything strikes him here, he will bite the dust immediately. Light apologizes, so Sasha explains that she's simply worried about him, and she examines him to ensure he isn't hurt. They've been traveling together for a while now, and the rest of the group starts teasing Sasha, calling calling her out for always babying him. They joke that she just can't help herself, that the second she's near Light, her face turns red and all her tough talk melts away. Sasha tries to say that she only does not want their group's reputation damaged by losing a member, but the others are not convinced. Light is feeling quite useless at this point, but Drago tells him not to be concerned. He says that he enjoys the tea that Light prepares for them, so he's already contributing enough. Light feels relieved hearing this, and the group continues their journey through the abyss. They reach an area with only a single way out, and Drago decides that this is the ideal place. Light thinks that it must be time for a rest, so he cheerfully tells everyone that he will prepare his well-known tea for them to enjoy. He says that it will just take a moment, but Drago immediately cuts him off and announces that Light is expelled from the party. Light cannot speak, so Drago repeats himself. Light remains completely confused, so Goru simply tells him that he's being thrown out of the group. Everyone's attitude has completely shifted as they all become harsh, and Goru says that he's worthless to them now. Even Sasha calls him a foolish child and says that he always irritated her. They even wonder aloud if his incompetence comes from a lack of brain cells or if it's simply a human trait. They all drop their act and reveal that they despise human trash like him. Light desperately hopes that it's a joke, but they tell him that they didn't come all the way into the abyss for some prank. Light points out that they were all so kind to him before, but they admit that it was all fake, as they needed him in their group. It makes no sense to him, so Drago explains that the entire setup was because of Light's ability. This only confuses Light more because his unlimited gacha has always seemed worthless. Drago says that their leaders have been monitoring Light because of his odd ability, suspecting that he might be something called a maestro. The only reason they brought him into the Concord of Tribes was to watch him closely. Light argues that his unlimited gacha is a useless ability because it only produces piles of junk, but that does not matter to them. They already know his power is worthless and his stats are even worse. That is why the leaders have decided that Light is not the maestro, which means he's nothing but dead weight now. The others wish the higher-ups had decided sooner because they hated pretending to like him all this time. Light knows nothing about these leaders or the maestro, but Drago says he's heard enough. It won't matter anyway, as Drago declares that it's time to finish the damn job. Horror crashes over Light as he realizes he's not just being thrown out of the party, because finishing the job means they're going to finish his ass off. That's when it begins, and Garu lunges forward, slicing across Light's face. His whole frame trembles as the brutal truth sinks in, and he bolts in panic. But escape isn't an option as the group tells him there's no way out. He couldn't survive even a single beast in the abyss, so they tell him to just accept his fate. Sasha makes it clear there won't be a chance to run, firing an arrow that pierces through his damn leg. Garu admits how much pleasure he gets from hunting humans, and Sion agrees, saying their freaking screams are like a sweet melody to her. Garu doesn't stop there, and he kicks the shit out of Light. Drago tells him to cut it off, but Garu is eager to keep going, so Sasha reminds him they have to stick to the script. Their excuse is going to be that a monster from the abyss killed Light, so they can't leave behind wounds that say otherwise. Garu steps up to deliver the final blow, telling Light he's been a fun target to beat on, so the end won't be quick. Light crawls desperately across the ground, questioning how it all came to this shit. His hopelessness explodes, and he shouts that he doesn't want to die, accidentally activating a teleport trap. Drago yells at Garu not to let the damn rat slip away, but it's already too late. A few seconds later, Light finds himself elsewhere in the dungeon, but the change in scenery brings no comfort. His injuries are severe, and he knows the moment one of the creatures here finds him, he's done. All he can think about is his family, wondering what led to this. The others had treated him kindly, and he thought they were becoming like comrades after everything they'd shared. But reality is cruel, and the friendship was fake, and they took joy in breaking him. They were thrilled at the thought of watching him die, and they planned to do it with smirks on their faces. Light's heartbreak quickly burns into fury, and he now despises every single one of them, so he promises to wipe them out. That fury lights a fire in him, and his thirst for vengeance refuses to let him fall here. He swears they'll pay, and he'll tear them all to pieces, and take his sweet revenge. But things only get worse as a creature shows up, and Light's eyes go wide as he sees it's level 1000. That shouldn't exist because beasts like that belong in myths. That's when Light realizes the terrifying truth that he's been warped to the very bottom of the abyss itself. There's no freaking chance of escape as the monster closes in, but Light refuses to perish before claiming his vengeance. All Light has to even attempt to resist is his unlimited gacha, so he activates it. Light triggers his unlimited gacha again and again, silently begging for a miracle. He will not surrender because he must destroy those who betrayed him at any price and return to the family he treasures. And by fortune, Light's persistence succeeds, and his gacha blazes with dazzling brilliance like never before. The monster strikes, but it's already too late as Light's gacha produces a new card. A voice proclaims that nothing shall harm its master, and a maiden manifests, completely obliterating the level 1000 creature. This mighty girl clears the wreckage she caused, and astonishingly, kneels before Light. She heals him and quickly apologizes for doing so without asking his permission first, saying it would be shameful if his handsome features and fair pearl skin were marred by such dreadful injuries. Light is amazed to hear her speak this way about him, and even more shocked to realize that she has healed every wound. The girl asks him to grace her with his name in his fine voice, so Light tells her who he is. The girl calls him Master Light and announces that she will devote her existence to serving him. It is the maid's oath of honor, and she vows her total loyalty to him without hesitation. Naturally, Light wants to know who this mysterious girl is, so she introduces herself as May, the ever-seeking maid, and her level is 9999. What stuns Light most isn't her power, it's that she's a super ultra rare card pulled from his supposedly useless unlimited gacha. But May goes on and on about her undying devotion, even saying she would follow him beyond death itself. Still overwhelmed, Light tries to explain that his unlimited gacha isn't anything special. There's just no way someone like her could have been summoned from such a useless skill. May kindly asks permission to inspect his gacha using her appraisal ability, saying she'll only do so with his consent because it's the proper way for a servant to act, and Light agrees. As soon as she examines it, May is amazed. She reveals that Light's abilities are buried beneath a powerful concealment barrier known as Conceal, and no one below her level would ever be able to uncover it. Then she tells him that his unlimited gacha is anything but trash. It allows for infinite draws, and the quality and rarity of what it produces depend on the mana levels in the surrounding area. She lists the rarity tiers from highest to lowest: extra, super ultra rare, triple is rare, double S rare, rare, normal, and at the bottom, error. Light doesn't fully understand the part about mana, so May breaks it down for him. She explains that mana is an invisible force that flows through everything in the world, but its concentration is weakest near the surface, which means the odds of pulling a super ultra rare like May up there are practically non-existent. But things are different down in this place. Right now, they're in the very depths of the dungeon, and the mana here is thick in the air. That means Light's chances of drawing rare cards improve dramatically at this depth. May has no idea what led him here, but she praises his courage for venturing this far below just to unlock the full strength of his unlimited gacha. Light, however, refuses to pretend he's some kind of hero. He admits that he would have never made it this far on his own. He explains how his old allies turned on him, how they slashed him, beat the shit out of him, pierced him with an arrow, and left him for dead. As he speaks, the memories overwhelm him. Tears come, but so does the rage, and he swears that he won't rest until every single one of them pays the price. Without warning, May gently wraps her arms around him and apologizes for the torment he's endured. She assures him that now that he has her at his side, serving justice to those traitors will be effortless. She then begs Light to give her the order to hunt down the treacherous ones and bring back their heads on stakes as tribute. Light takes a step back, not giving an answer, so May assumes it's because he has too much compassion in his heart, and tells him his enemies are beneath mercy. But Light replies that's not the issue. He trusted them and got tricked. He was beaten nearly to death and thrown to the bottom of this cursed place, and the real problem wasn't them, it was his own weakness. And that's why he's decided that he must grow stronger. He admits it might be impossible for a weak human like him, but he desires vengeance by his own hand. He then wonders aloud if May thinks he's she's being foolish, but she says she would never think that of him. Instead, she declares that his desire is hers, and if his goal is personal vengeance, then it's her duty to see it through. She says that she believes in what he can become, more than anything in the world, so Light thanks her for her unwavering loyalty. With their resolve now aligned, Light rolls his unlimited gacha once more in the depths of the abyss, vowing to master his ability to build a kingdom powerful enough to clear the way toward his vengeance. After 3 years, we see that Light has built a massive empire right in the depths of the abyss. Surrounded by his loyal maids, he stands at the center, his calm voice filled with praise as he tells them they've done excellent work once again. In perfect harmony, they bow and express their gratitude toward their adored Master Light. Every one of them seems completely captivated by him, whispering that being near him feels like the luckiest thing that's ever happened in their lives. One overly devoted maid even gushes that she'd give anything just to sniff his feet. Their obsession quickly grows absurd, and May, visibly irritated, requests permission to put them back in line. But Light just waves it off with an easy smile, saying there's no need because they're just showing loyalty in their own way, and allows it to pass. Then we see the true scale of Light's empire. Vast cities filled with bustling shops and countless citizens leading peaceful lives. Wherever he walks, people greet him warmly, calling out to Master Light and offering him their finest dishes. Even those who are running low on supplies approach him without fear, knowing their leader is kind and fair. Light reassures them that he'll alert the administration to fix any shortages, and May immediately takes charge, insisting on resolving every issue at once to ensure no one doubts the empire's stability. Light observes that the population has grown enormously over the past 3 years, and he realizes he might need to overhaul the entire governing structure soon. His next concern is the status of his elite warriors, each one a summon from level 999 super ultra rare card. May reports that they're all currently out on mission. Ayuki, for instance, is mapping the outer perimeter of the abyss, a region crawling with dangerous creatures. But Light isn't worried because he's confident that a genius beast tamer like her can handle anything out there. Next is Eli, who's been hard at work developing new forms of magic aligned with Light's grand vision. He knows he's given her a lot to handle and hopes she isn't pushing herself too hard to meet his expectations. Then there's Nazuna, who's patrolling the castle as usual. She specializes in close quarters combat, making her the ideal bodyguard. May admits Nazuna isn't exactly the sharpest mind in the group, but she's easily the most entertaining to be around. Back inside the castle, May grows annoyed to find someone waiting outside Light's chamber, and it's Jack, the level 7777 warrior. May scolds him for being too casual and reminds him to show proper respect to Master Light. But Light dismisses her concern and tells her it's fine, and he doesn't mind because he always thinks of him as his big brother. The two men step outside for some serious training, and Light warns that today there'll be no holding back. He declares the gloves are off and immediately opens with a lightning-fast punch straight into Jack's stomach. Jack stumbles back, clearly impressed, but laughs it off because after all, there's a reason they call him the Iron-Blooded Barricade. Light's hit would have taken out nearly anyone else, but Jack is built like a fortress. As their sparring session heats up, we cut to Nazuna making her rounds through the castle. She proudly informs the other maids that she's carrying out a direct assignment from Master Light, a critical patrol mission. The maids shower her with praise, saying they feel safer knowing someone like her is watching over them. Nazuna tries to remain modest, saying she's just doing her duty, even if her posture says otherwise. Not sure where to head next, Nazuna listens as the maids nervously mention a certain restricted zone they'd like her to check out. Turns out that area is none other than Light's bedroom. Leaving May puzzled about why Nazuna's knocking there, Nazuna says she's simply planning to inspect the room, but May calmly tells her that Light's quarters are already tightly secured. But Nazuna hits back by pointing out that Light isn't even home right now, and more suspiciously, wonders what May is doing inside. May quickly claims she's just keeping busy, as all diligent maids should be, but Nazuna shrugs and lets herself in. Once inside, Nazuna begins to observe the surroundings. Something seems off. The bed is clearly ruffled, as if someone had been flopping around on it. Even stranger, there are impressions on the pillows like someone was lying down, kicking their legs, and sniffing. May doesn't flinch and calmly says this is part of her specialized bed-making technique. She claims it's a top secret method, not to be shared. Nazuna, completely convinced, gasps in admiration. She praises Mei's incredible skills and says she truly deserves her position as Light's first ever summon. But Nazuna didn't come empty-handed. She also delivers a message from the other maids. They're fed up with Mei monopolizing access to Light's room. The note says the maids demand fair cleaning rights, and that a formal petition has already been launched to remove Mei as head maid. They accuse her of tyranny and sign off the letter with a sharp "get wrecked." Nazuna offers to help however she can, but Mei politely declines, saying it's her job to handle this uprising herself. She thanks Nazuna for relaying the message and even slips her a tip, which leaves Nazuna beaming with joy. Nazuna immediately rushes off to splurge her reward money at a local vendor that just restocked with a fresh batch of irresistible treats. She refuses to waste her coin on anything average because what her stomach truly craves are those glorious milk and pancake sandwiches. With no hesitation, she shoves the snacks into her mouth, completely lost in flavor heaven. And that's when she stumbles upon Aoyuki inside the castle. Confused, Nazuna asks why Aoyuki is back so soon because she was supposed to be exploring the forest perimeter of the abyss. As always, Aoyuki replies in a series of cat-like meows. Unfortunately for her, Nazuna doesn't speak meow the way Light does. Ever confident in her own brilliance, Nazuna attempts to interpret her cryptic words, but her guesses miss the mark entirely. First, she asks if Aoyuki needs help chopping down trees to clear the scouting path, but the answer is clearly no. Then she wonders if Aoyuki might have run into some kind of monster that was too tough to handle, but that's not it either. Nazuna eventually acknowledges that while Aoyuki was summoned before her, she still looks older and stronger, so with full confidence, she tells Aoyuki that if she's ever in trouble, she should feel free to rely on her. Tired of the guessing game, Aoyuki finally drops the act and speaks normally, explaining that she completed the mission without any issues. She didn't encounter a single threat and came back simply to deliver her portion of the completed map. Back inside the castle, Nazuna finishes up her patrol with pride, though she's a little down that she hasn't seen Master Light all day. After making sure she's alone, she sneaks over and climbs onto Light's grand throne. She reflects on how effortlessly cool he looks whenever he sits there, and quietly wishes he were here now. But her fantasy is abruptly shattered when she accidentally snaps off a small piece of the throne's angel wing. In full panic mode, she slaps the broken part back on, hoping it stays, then bolts from the room in a full sprint. Meanwhile, out near the training grounds, Light and Jack are still exchanging blows, but eventually agree to wrap up for the day. While catching their breath, Jack comments that Light has practically mastered the art of turning his entire body into a weapon. But Light, as humble as ever, credits Jack for being a great teacher. The intense sessions have transformed Light into a powerhouse, and Jack admits that there are only a handful of beings in the Abyss that could even stand a chance against him now. The Abyss is home to the most fearsome creatures on the planet, meaning that if so few can rival Light down here, even fewer can challenge him on the surface. But Jack isn't saying this to brag. He's reminding Light of an important truth. Stronger foes still exist out there. Light takes the warning to heart, and he knows the surface world is full of unknown dangers, and he vows never to grow complacent. He'll survive no matter what it takes because his mission for vengeance still isn't over. In another room, Mei gathers the maids for a meeting, but they all pretend they have no idea why she summoned them. Mei calmly recites every word of the message they sent her, including the final, "get wrecked" line. Instantly, the group starts apologizing all at once. None of them know what to say, so they scramble for excuses. One of them claims they were just trying to help because Mei is always so overworked, and the others chime in, saying their intentions were good. But none of that explains the last part of their note. And worst of all, they had the nerve to send Nazuna to deliver it instead of facing Mei directly. Their so-called unity crumbles in seconds as they start blaming each other. But Mei shuts it down, and she firmly rejects their request to be allowed inside Light's room. Instead, she assigns them a different task, cleaning the corridor that leads to the throne chamber. And just to drive the point home, she orders them to scrub it all manually, without magic or shortcut. The hallway is ridiculously long, and the maids groan that it'll take forever. But Mei doesn't budge, and she reminds them that she'll be heading to the surface soon on a special mission for Master Light, so she expects them to keep everything spotless while she's away. Meanwhile, in the market, Nazuna stares dreamily at a sleek-looking weapon on display, muttering that she wishes she could buy something that cool. Ellie suddenly shows up behind her, surprised to find her hanging around the shop. Thinking Nazuna's probably there for sweets again, she's surprised to hear that Nazuna's just admiring a pair of battle gloves. Nazuna thought Ellie would be off doing fieldwork or overseeing repairs like usual, but Ellie casually says she's on break today and everything's running so smoothly. She actually has free time for once. Ellie suspects Nazuna's even more scatterbrained than usual, but Nazuna tries to prove her sharpness by proudly reciting multiplication facts, only to mess up right away. Ellie bursts out laughing, mocking her, and the two start bickering. Ellie smugly points out that Light trusts her with high-level tasks, crucial to his master plan for revenge, unlike Nazuna and her adorably tiny brain. Nazuna claps back, saying her patrols are important too, but Ellie waves it off as nothing special. Then Ellie reveals she just had tea with Light to discuss strategic matters. She taunts Nazuna, saying next time she might even reserve a private room for their meeting. Nazuna instantly gets jealous, not over the conversation, but the tea. She desperately wants to have tea with Light too. Ellie can't believe that's what upset her, but Nazuna just blinks confused, because she doesn't see what else there is to be jealous about. So Ellie says there's something even more jealousy-worthy, something that should really light a fire under her. But Nazuna misreads the moment entirely, and she assumes Ellie's talking about magic and immediately offers her support, thinking Ellie might be worried about not being able to fight without spells one day, and she promises to protect her if that ever happens. Left speechless, Ellie just sighs and says sure, she'll take her up on it. Nazuna skips off, happy as ever, ready to resume her patrol. Ellie watches her go, thinking to herself that there really is no one else quite like Nazuna. Elsewhere in the castle, the four maids gripe about how they ended up in trouble despite having what they believe was a perfectly valid complaint about their supervisor. The problem is that she is the supervisor, and May is practically untouchable, powerless to act against her. They all sulk, dreaming about how nice it would have been to be the ones cleaning Master Light's room. The conversation quickly derails as one of them says she'd bury her entire face in his bedsheets just to catch his scent. As usual, the girl who always takes things too far goes way over the edge, saying she wants to lick every utensil he's ever used. The others immediately call her a freaking freak, but after a moment of hesitation, they all sheepishly admit they'd probably do the same. Their thoughts wander to May's seniority because after all, she was the very first one Light summoned. It wasn't until 3 months later that Aoyuki appeared, and they can't stop imagining what might have happened between Light and May during that time, and their imaginations spiral out of control. Light is pure, innocent, and sometimes completely clueless, and the idea of a young boy and girl being alone together in a death trap of a dungeon makes them sick with envy. They feel so jealous. They wish they could channel that emotion into an actual curse to put on May. They try, but all freeze in horror when May suddenly appears behind them. They had all assumed she'd already left for her surface mission, but apparently not. May tells them she caught wind of them chanting die repeatedly and has come for an explanation. Instantly, the girls change their tone, pretending to be nothing but loyal underlings. But May isn't fooled in the slightest. Eventually, they confess, admitting their envy got the better of them. What they really resent is the fact that May got to spend so much one-on-one time with Light. May tells them she has no obligation to share what happened during those 3 months, but since she's feeling charitable, she'll humor them. She reveals that during that time, Light didn't spend a single moment doing anything remotely romantic or questionable. He buried himself in study, devouring every book he could find and practicing martial arts non-stop, because he was entirely consumed by his goal of growing stronger. As for all the depraved fantasies the maids cooked up, none of them came even remotely true. May admits that lately, she had been feeling like she might have been too strict, that maybe her leadership had been a little unreasonable. She was even considering lightening their workload. But now, after hearing what they were plotting, she realizes she was way too lenient. Not only will they be scrubbing the hallways by hand, but she's adding the throne room to their task list as well. The girls groan in despair, realizing that will take an eternity, but May coldly remarks that, given how much time they spent bad-mouthing her, they clearly have plenty to spare. Her tone shifts from casual to commanding, as she tells them to acknowledge the order immediately. The maids have no choice but to salute and get to work, grumbling as they go. But just as they begin cleaning, disaster strikes. The broken angel wing on Light's throne, previously reattached in a panic by Nazuna, snaps off and hits the floor. Inside her room, Nazuna stretches out with a sigh of relief, proud to have completed another day of keeping the peace. Still, there's a lingering disappointment in her chest because she didn't get to see Light at all. More than anything, she wishes he'd finally give her the order she's been waiting for. She wants to be sent to the surface, so she can destroy everyone who dared to betray him. She eventually calmed down, hoping she could see him the next morning, and fell asleep with that wish in her heart. The following day, Light steps outside the castle and finds the usual scene. Ellie and Nazuna locked in another argument. Nazuna lights up the moment she spots him, thrilled that her wish came true and she gets to see Master Light again. As always, Light can't help but treat Aoyuki like a cat, and the other girls quickly become jealous of the attention. But the peaceful moment is shattered when a familiar beast shows up, one that looks exactly like the hellhound Light first faced when he fell into the abyss. Even now, Light feels his body tense up at the sight of it, haunted by the fear from that day. But things were different now because he had powerful warriors by his side, and they were ready to fight without hesitation. Nazuna drops her usual air-headed tone, filled with rage that a lowly training mutt would dare show its face in front of Light. Ellie's furious too, ready to punish the creature for its arrogance. Aoyuki is equally disgusted. Just the hound's presence is disturbing Light's peace, and she promises to wipe out their entire breed if needed. They make it clear that they're about to unleash the overwhelming force of their level 999 strength. But before they can make a move, Light gently steps in and tells them it's alright. His voice alone is enough to make them stop instantly. He reassures them that he's fine now. Surprisingly, Light even apologizes to the beast for scaring it. In the back of his mind, he knows that if he ever gave the word, his girls would wipe the hellhounds from existence. Then Light gets to the reason he gathered them. He informs them that May has returned, and her mission was a success, which means it's time. Their target has fallen right into the trap, and now they move to phase 2. The girls are a bit annoyed that May got to take the lead, but they're just as fired up knowing they're finally moving forward. Light turns and leads them forward, declaring that the first dish of his long-awaited revenge is finally ready to be served. Far away, in the City of Wolves, one of Light's targets, Garu, strolls through the streets. The people cheer for him like he's a hero, blissfully unaware that vengeance is already on its way. The villagers are obsessed with Garu, to the point where one of them even jokes that he should marry his sister. They heap praise on him non-stop, and Garu laps it up without shame. He soaks in the attention, strutting around like a celebrity and telling everyone to clear the way for a legend. Off to the side, a human digs through a pile of trash, and Garu can't stand the sight, so he calls the boy gutter scum, slams him into the ground, and spits right in his face. Like most beast folk, Garu holds nothing but contempt for humans, and he tells the boy to vanish and makes it clear he better never show up in front of him again. Later at a local tavern, he confidently claims the best seat and instructs his entourage to order anything they like, boasting that he's been earning handsomely. His companions heap praise on him, calling him a symbol of pride for all beast folk, even though he himself once clawed his way up from the filth of the slums. Now, he's a leader admired by many. With unfiltered arrogance, he tells them that becoming someone like him isn't something just anyone can do. He's mastered the art of influence, and since beast folk are naturally inclined to follow, all he needs to do is leverage that trait. Then life becomes royalty. According to him, the key to success lies in properly categorizing tasks, knowing which ones are worth the investment, and which consume too much effort for too little return in power or profit. One of the less intelligent beast folk brings up an old job Garu took 3 years ago involving the Concord of Tribes, asking whether it had been lucrative. Another companion scolds him for prying, but the wolf-like leader answers calmly, stating that the federation they worked for had bound them by oath, making it impossible to reveal any specific details. He recalls, however, that it was the easiest and most profitable mission he'd ever taken. Just eliminate one insignificant, worthless human boy. and now he's both wealthy and respected. Still, something about that portal nags at him. He never discovered where it led, though he highly doubts someone like Light could have possibly survived. What intrigues him more is the mysterious maestro that the Federation was so obsessed with locating. The thought alone sends a chill through him, warning that digging too deep into it might be dangerous. Before he can think further, his thoughts are interrupted by the sudden arrival of a stunning young woman revealed to be Mei, who politely asks if they can speak. She inquires whether he is Goru the Beast Folk leader, and he nods after casually sipping from his drink. Mei falsely claims to have served as the maid of Master Light, who she explains hails from an esteemed noble bloodline. Goru is stunned by this revelation and begins to wonder if he had kept Light alive. It would have been more profitable for him. Mei continues her deception, claiming that she has been searching for Light for the past 3 years, and that every clue she followed led her to this country, the very place where he was last seen traveling with a new party. Goru casually admits that he was indeed part of that group and confirms that Light had been among them. Mei's eyes glisten as she feigns sorrow, saying she heard rumors that Light perished inside the dungeons and was never seen again. Goru nods solemnly, agreeing that it's true that Light met a tragic end. But Mei gently asks if he could guide her to the site where it happened, explaining that it would bring her comfort to visit the place where Light drew his last breath. Goru responds bluntly, asking what's in it for him. To his surprise, Mei calmly places a small bag on the table, and inside are 3 solid bars of gold. His companions are stunned into silence, their eyes wide, but Goru keeps a straight face as his mind races. He wonders whether this is a setup, or if the girl genuinely seeks nothing more than a guide into the depths of the dungeons. But after a moment's thought, he decides to take the deal. In his mind, a fragile human woman poses no threat to someone of his strength, as she couldn't even touch a strand of his fur, let alone harm him. Goru eventually leads her into the dungeons, accompanied by his loyal followers. After several hours of trekking through damp tunnels, he turns to ask if she's holding up. Mei, though visibly drained, offers a faint smile and insists she can continue. Goru smirks inwardly, thinking about how fortune always seems to favor him. He plans to rob her of her gold once they arrive, and then defile her right there, over the grave of the man she mourns. Finally, they reach the cavern where Light had once been abandoned and left to die. Goru gestures ahead, claiming this is the spot where Light met his unfortunate fate. He spins a false tale about a group of monsters ambushing them, saying Light didn't have time to flee, was torn apart, and then triggered a teleportation trap and was never to be seen again. Mei collapses to her knees, tears streaming down her face, while Goru's thoughts turn cruel. He mocks how pitiful humans are, so fragile, so unaware of danger even as it closes in. His men subtly spread out, forming a circle and sealing off the only escape, while Goru continues his performance, pretending to lament that he tried to save Light but failed. Just as he prepares to strike, Mei's tone suddenly changes. Her voice hardens as she declares that only the most depraved creatures in existence could deceive someone as pure-hearted as Light, luring him into a filthy dungeon only to betray him. Her words echo sharply against the stone walls as she glances around, regret burning in her eyes, admitting that if she had entered Light's service even a little sooner, he would have never been hunted, shot through the leg, and beaten until he could barely breathe. Goru instantly senses danger and instinctively leaps backward, his mind racing with confusion about how on earth this woman knows such specific details. His followers glance around, clearly puzzled, unaware of the full weight of what's just been said. But Goru knows better. The only individuals who could possibly be aware of that event are either members of the concordative tribes or high-ranking figures from the nation's elite. He narrows his eyes and demands to know who she's working for, accusing her of being a spy dispatched by a rival tribe. She scoffs in response, boldly declaring that she serves no one but Light and that Goru is about to face her fury. The raw energy surging from her sends a shudder through him, which he finds deeply unsettling. He tries to reassure himself that she's nothing more than a worthless human, good only for being used and discarded. But the moment she locks eyes with him, a cold wave of dread washes over him. His instincts are screaming the truth that this is no bluff, and if he fights her, he's going to die. Just as Mei is about to strike, a calm voice echoes from the shadows, and it's Light's voice urging her to stand down, saying that he'll handle Goru personally. Goru's eyes widen, refusing to believe what he's hearing. But then, Light steps forward into view, his tone almost casual, as if greeting an old acquaintance. He tells Goru he's come to settle the score from 3 years ago. Suddenly regaining his swagger, Garu bursts into laughter, claiming he never thought he'd see Light again. He mocks him for being a pathetic level 15 human, bragging that someone like him couldn't possibly stand against a level 158 raid boss. He sneers, saying he doesn't even care how the hell Light survived. But now at last he can slay him with his own hands and drag his corpse back as evidence. Light exhales softly, asking if Garu isn't at least curious about who Mei is, or how powerful she really might be. Garu shrugs it off, admitting that he has no clue about the true strength of this so-called maid. But he's absolutely certain that weak little humans will never measure up to beast folk like them. He boasts that all his men are above level 130 and that they'll crush them with overwhelming force. Without further delay, he gives the signal to attack. Two of his subordinates rush toward Light at full speed, weapons drawn, ready to strike him down. But in an instant, Mei intercepts them, appearing before they even blink. Their heads fall cleanly to the ground in the same spot, while their bodies collapse in silence. She coldly warns that anyone who dares to threaten Light will lose their life, but Light calmly instructs her to fall back and block all the exits because this time, he wants to have a little fun himself. Garu's men start to lose their nerve, unable to comprehend what they've just witnessed. But Garu quickly tries to get them back in line, brushing it off as nothing more than a cheap parlor trick she pulled, nothing real. Light looks at him and asks if he still honestly believes humans are weaker. If it ever crossed his mind that humanity might be the most powerful race of them all. Garu bursts into laughter, proudly flexing his level, as if that ends the conversation. But Light calmly responds, saying that a level is just a number, and it means nothing when it comes to true strength. Garu's patience snaps, and with a furious roar, he and all his cronies launch themselves at Light in full force. But to their shock, Light doesn't flinch and stands as still as a mirror's surface. Then in an instant, he erupts into motion, parrying every strike and flooring each of the beast warriors in flawless succession. One by one, they crash to the ground, dazed and breathless. Light steps toward Garu and asks him again if he still thinks humans are weak. But Garu, consumed by pride, refuses to accept defeat. Gritting his teeth, he pushes through the pain, vaults back to his feet, and shouts that no human could ever rival him. Determined, he pulls a glowing magic crystal from his pocket and slams it onto the floor, summoning his familiar, an enormous level 500 wolf monster. Light watches calmly and asks if that's truly the best Garu can do. But Garu assumes he's stunned into silence and mocks him, urging him to start begging. Light doesn't budge and tells Garu to go ahead and strike, promising not to take a single step from where he's standing. Enraged, Garu commands his beast to unleash a blast so devastating it could obliterate an entire city block. The explosion rocks the dungeon, and a cloud of dust swallows everything. But when it clears, Garu's expression freezes in disbelief. Light stands exactly where he was, untouched, not even a scratch marring his robes. Light smirks, mocking him for giving that overblown attack such a grand name when all it did was stir up a little dust. Garu is too stunned to reply, and now his men are visibly trembling, some barely able to hold themselves together. With a quiet confidence, Light announces it's his turn. He reaches into his coat like he's in the middle of a duel and pulls out a card just like in a trading card game. He plays the legendary level 9000 ultra rare card, the Primal Wolf Divinity. The divine beast materializes behind him, radiant and ethereal, leaving the beast folk dumbstruck. Light gives a simple command, eliminate Garu's familiar. But instead of firing off a dramatic explosion, the divine wolf exhales gently, and that breath alone is enough. Its divine essence freezes Garu's massive wolf solid and then shatters it into gleaming fragments, right in front of its stunned master. Garu stands frozen, mind spiraling, unable to accept that his level 500 monster was destroyed in an instant, without even a real fight. But Light simply shrugs, telling him that he could have crushed the beast himself if he'd really wanted to. Then, as the final blow to Garu's pride, Light reveals his own level maxed out at 9999. Garu begins to stammer, his whole body trembling as he mutters that this simply can't be real because humans aren't supposed to exceed level 100. And if Light were truly the same human from 3 years ago, he should have aged by now. Light calmly explains that he wears an age ring to halt his physical growth, a reminder of who he was and the day he was betrayed by the lowest form of filth to ever walk the earth. At that moment, Garu realizes his fate is sealed. He stands no chance, none at all against the monster that Light has become. Knowing he's as good as dead, he does what any coward would. He drops his weapons and falls to his knees, begging for mercy. He pleads that it wasn't his fault, claiming he acted under orders from the Federation. With a trembling voice, he insists that he never intended to harm anyone, that his subordinates were the ones who came up with this entire plan and dragged him into it. His underlings stare at him in disbelief because this is the same man who was bragging about his power and dominance just this morning, and now he's bowing his head, begging for forgiveness, even offering to serve as Light's pet if it would spare his life. Light, however, remains indifferent, and instead he asks what the Maestro truly is and why the government is so obsessed with finding him. Garou answers honestly that he doesn't know, only that they were told the Maestro was likely a human. Light's tone hardens as he asks why they chose to kill him once they believed he wasn't the Maestro. Garou quickly prostrates himself again, swearing that he has no idea, that they were simply following orders. Light's eyes shift toward the other beast folk, demanding to know if any of them possess real information. In a desperate bid to survive, they all start shouting that they do. But May's special eyes flare with power, exposing their lies. Without hesitation, she cuts them down where they stand, their blood splattering across the cavern floor. She coldly declares that anyone who dares to lie before Light will meet death by her hand. Light turns back to Garou and asks if he believes there's anyone strong enough to challenge him should he decide to wage war on the surface. Garou admits the truth that Light's power is beyond comprehension, enough to crush nations single-handedly. But he adds that if the nations unite and unleash the weapons they've been developing, even someone like Light might face difficulties, especially with only a maid by his side. Light smirks and tells him he wants to show him something. With a flick of his hand, he casts teleportation magic, transporting them straight to his own throne room. Garou's sanity nearly snaps the instant he arrives. His mind can't process what he's seeing, an army so vast and terrifying that the weakest among them is level 1500, while 4 maids stand at level 9999. The rest range between 6,000 and 9,000, each radiating divine power. Garou can't speak, and a single tear slips down his cheek as the horrifying truth sinks in. Light could erase the entire planet in the blink of an eye. He isn't just powerful, he's a walking apocalypse. And Garou can only tremble as he wonders what will happen when that deity finally decides to go to war. The next morning, Light heads back to his hometown with the hope of reuniting with his family and bringing them back to his dungeon city. But when he arrived, that hope quickly turned to despair. Before him lay nothing but a wasteland of shattered ruins and decaying corpses. The village had been completely wiped out roughly 6 months earlier by unknown attackers, leaving no trace of life behind. Determined to at least give his loved ones a proper farewell, Light began sifting through the rubble, searching for any remains he could lay to rest. To his immense relief, none of the bodies matched those of his younger siblings, which gave him a faint spark of hope that they might still be alive somewhere. But his parents hadn't been so lucky. Gold, noticing the weight of the moment, asked if Light was holding up, acknowledging how difficult this must be to process, but Light assured him he would manage. Right now, their focus had to remain on the current mission, so he requested Gold and Nemamu to assist in gathering as much intelligence as possible. While it had become clear that their military strength was formidable enough to rival the world's major powers, rushing headfirst into conflict would be reckless. He wanted detailed information about the capabilities of each nation. Moreover, Light suspected that the destruction of his village was directly linked to rumors of him being a maestro, so he was determined to uncover what a maestro truly is, and why such a title would warrant so much bloodshed. And if it turned out that all this devastation was the result of a few power-hungry elites chasing influence, then he vowed to reduce the world to ashes and personally force the culprits to swallow the aftermath. Gold sympathized with Light's anger but cautioned him to control his fury in public. The aura he was emitting could easily kill an ordinary person on the spot. Light apologized for his lack of restraint and equipped an item called the Fool's Mask to suppress his energy and conceal his identity. After paying his final respects at his parents' graves and quietly apologizing for not being able to protect them, he and Gold and Nemamu took off, heading toward the city of Dagas. Along the way, Nemamu, curious and slightly unsure, asked what Light intended to do once they arrived. Before Light could answer, Gold advised her to be mindful of how she addresses their lord while they're on the surface, and Light explained that using his real name could alert those affiliated with Concord. So for the time being, he would go by the alias Dark during their mission, and Nemamu nodded in understanding. As for his plans in Dagas, Light informed her that he intended to register as an adventurer under the name Dark. and by rising through the ranks, he hoped to gradually gain access to valuable information from the upper circles within the guild. After a short while, Nimemu spots the city of Dagas on the horizon. Since flying straight in would attract unnecessary attention, Light recommends landing in the forest and making the rest of the journey on foot. Still, with Gold's dazzling suit of armor, they're bound to stand out regardless. As the trio makes their way through the woods, they stumble upon a troubling scene: a human merchant being ambushed by a group of dwarven bandits. Although they would have preferred to stay unnoticed until reaching the city, Gold's armor includes embedded sparkle effects that catch the light, and unfortunately the attention of the thieves. The dwarves then decide to try their luck robbing him as well, which ends poorly for them, as they are left tied up and humiliated in the middle of the trail. The grateful merchant and his son, overwhelmed with relief, offer Light and his companions a ride to the city as thanks for their timely rescue. During the trip, the boy can't stop talking about how incredible Gold was in battle, admitting he'd never seen anyone take down dwarves with such ease. His father guesses they must be a well-known team of adventurers, but Light clarifies that they haven't even registered yet. Surprised by the response, the man tells them that if they are serious about becoming adventurers, Dagas is the ideal place to do it. The city boasts one of the largest guilds in the region and sits at the border between the elf, dwarf, and human territories. With a solid population of humans residing there, it's considered one of the more welcoming cities for their kind. He even mentions owning a successful human-run hotel and invites them to stay there if they need lodging. Not long after, they reach the outskirts of Dagas. Light asks Colonel to drop them off at the city gates, as they prefer to walk the rest of the way on foot. For Gold and Nimemu, this is their first time setting foot in a surface city, and they quickly take note of the many storefronts selling armor and weaponry. Light explains that it's no surprise because this place is filled with adventurers, and with the nearby dwarf kingdom known for its blacksmithing prowess, it's only natural that their goods are sold here in abundance. When the group finally arrives at the guild hall, Nimemu observes that humans tend to scatter and avoid eye contact whenever someone from another race passes by. Light interprets this behavior as evidence that humans aren't exactly treated with respect in this city either, even if that discrimination isn't openly acknowledged. Light makes his way to the front desk to register, and as expected, he's required to begin at F rank. That means he'll need to complete a few entry-level quests later on to raise his status. But before handling any of that, securing a place to stay takes priority. Recalling that Colonel mentioned owning a hotel, Light decides to head there with the others. Colonel is visibly surprised to see Light again and asks how he can assist him, and Light explains that he has a rather specific request. He would like to rent out the entire top floor of the building, and under no circumstances should anyone, staff included, be allowed to enter. To seal the deal, Light drops a heavy bag of gold coins onto the counter. Colonel is left utterly speechless, unsure how to respond. Light offers to pay even more if needed, but Colonel quickly assures him that this is already 10 times more than necessary. He also says he can't accept such an extravagant sum from the man who saved his life earlier. However, Light remains firm in his decision, and eventually Colonel accepts the generous offer and promises to prepare the rooms immediately. Not long after, Light and the group head upstairs. Once inside, Light takes out several perception-blocking spell cards and activates them throughout the room, ensuring that no one can eavesdrop or spy on them. Finally able to let his guard down, he pulls up a chair and sits, taking a moment to rest. As he settles in, Nimemu speaks up and says that while she understands Light is incredibly strong and has chosen to become an adventurer here to gather intelligence, there's always a risk that he could be injured on the surface. She believes it might be safer for him to return to the dungeon city and let the rest of them handle matters on his behalf. Although Light is generally a calm and considerate person, Nimemu's suggestion hits a nerve. To him, it sounds like she's trying to sideline him from his own mission of revenge, like she thinks he's not capable of carrying it out himself, so that implication infuriates him. Nimemu immediately realizes her mistake and drops to her knees, begging for forgiveness, but the damage has already been done. Light's expression turns deadly, and for a moment, it looks like he might actually harm her. Sensing the rising tension, Gold steps in, laughing lightly to ease the mood. He tells Light that Nimemu simply doesn't grasp the emotional weight behind revenge, and he explains that Light intends to carry out his vengeance with his own hands. No intermediaries, no delegation, and that's something truly noble to stand behind. Hearing Gold's light-hearted jab brings Light back to his senses, and he realizes that he may have let his emotions spiral out of control. he kneels down and apologizes to Nemomu, admitting that he overreacted and understands her words came from genuine concern for his safety. Nemomu, however, insists that she was the one in the wrong for speaking out of turn, so she pleads for the chance to renew her vow of loyalty. Although Light doesn't think such a gesture is necessary, he agrees to honor her request. With care, Nemomu lifts his foot and presses her lips to it. In this world, a kiss to the foot is the ultimate sign of deference and respect toward one's sovereign. Still, Light has never been fond of this custom, especially recalling how awkward it felt when all of his subordinates lined up to perform the ritual when he first summoned them. Even Gold can't help but comment that the whole thing is a bit odd, especially since Nemomu seems to be enjoying it far too much. The following day, Light and the others set out toward the dungeon. As they stroll through the city streets, they quickly draw attention. Gold, clad in radiant armor, sparkles like a walking treasure chest, and Nemomu's striking beauty turns plenty of heads. As for Light, the only remark people seem to have is that he looks strange in his mask, but that only adds to his enigmatic dark persona, so he isn't bothered in the slightest. When they reach the dungeon entrance, they find a long line of people waiting to get in. Gold quickly notices something odd: there aren't any elves present. So Light explains that the elf and dwarf kingdoms are currently locked in a territorial dispute over ownership of this particular dungeon, which has led them to avoid crossing paths. Nemomu compliments Light on always having an answer for everything, which he appreciates, though he raises an eyebrow and asks if she really needs to stand that close, as her melon is pressing hard against the back of his head. She replies with complete seriousness that it's her duty to guard him at all times, and maintaining close proximity is part of that responsibility. Before Light can protest further, he notices a small group of 3 cutting ahead in line. The shortest one is likely a servant, while the second appears to have received moderate combat training. But it's the man in front who truly catches Light's eye. Despite the oversized weapon slung across his back, his movements are sharp, deliberate, and practiced, signs of a seasoned warrior. The surrounding humans hesitate to confront him, likely afraid of provoking a deadly response. But Light has no such fear. Stepping forward, he calls out the elf for his rudeness, stating plainly that cutting in line is unacceptable. The elf immediately bristles with rage when he realizes a human had the audacity to speak to him. He reaches for his sword, clearly ready to escalate the situation, but the elder accompanying him quietly advises that it's not worth causing a scene over something so trivial. After a brief pause, the warrior reluctantly agrees and moves to the back of the line. But as he passes by Light, he leans in and coldly warns him that he'll come to regret showing such disrespect. Once the elf is out of sight, the surrounding humans begin to cheer for Light, applauding him for standing up to the arrogant bully. The kids from earlier even return to personally thank him, having finally mustered the courage to approach. Light tells them there's no need to thank him because he simply acted out of self-interest. But the children remain sincerely grateful nonetheless. Right then, one of the kids curiously asks Gold if his armor is really made of actual gold, since everyone nearby has been wondering the same thing. Before Gold can respond, Nemomu steps in and explains that his armor isn't made of gold at all, because if it were it'd be far too soft to offer any meaningful protection. The boy starts to ask if Gold just wears it for show, but his friends quickly stop him, realizing that might come off as rude. Still, Gold takes no offense. With a grin, he proudly admits that he absolutely wears it for attention, because no color better reflects the shining example he strives to be as a knight. The conversation shifts as the kids ask if this is Light's group's first time venturing into the dungeon. Light confirms, but also wonders aloud how they guessed. The children explain that this floor is usually reserved for more experienced adventurers due to the high entrance fee, and most who enter come prepared to camp inside. And since Light's team didn't bring any visible gear, it was pretty easy to tell they were new to this specific dungeon. Right then, a guard calls for the next party to proceed. The kids wave goodbye and dash off together into the dungeon. Watching them disappear, Light and the others consider whether they should start carrying fake equipment. Even though all their actual supplies are stored inside an item box, it might be worth the effort just to avoid looking like total newbies. A short while later, it's finally their turn to enter. For Light, this is the first time he's stepped into a dungeon that isn't the Abyss. Dungeons are saturated with mana that grows more potent the deeper one goes, often spawning monsters, traps, and even entire ecosystems. In essence, the inside of a dungeon functions as a world of its own. Once they reach the first floor, Light casts concealment magic over the group, shielding them from detection. And with that, they They begin flying together toward the second floor. At the same time, the elf from earlier is furiously venting his frustration on a pack of orcs, unable to accept that a mere human had the gall to speak to him so casually. His name is Kaido, and he loudly declares himself a legendary hero of the Elf Kingdom, boasting that the blood of a maestro flows through his veins, making him deserving of reverence. He mutters bitterly that such humiliation would have never happened if his level weren't currently so low. But Yanok the Elder traveling with him reminds him that a level of 1,500 is already far beyond the standard cap for elves. Still, Kaido scoffs at the idea since it's not enough. He needs the kind of overwhelming power that would allow him to erase every last clown who dared mock or look down on him. Yanok, clearly holding on to some resentment of his own, says he understands the sentiment. After all, he was exiled for research no one respected. So if there's any chance to use that very research to help Kaido grow stronger, he's all in. Back on the other side of the dungeon, Light and his team have already made their way down to the third floor, having just cleared out a massive horde of orcs. Light suggests it's a good time to head back since they've gathered more than enough proof of their strength for the guild. Plus, that last battle left him a mess, and he's eager to clean up. The moment Nemamu hears that, she eagerly volunteers to wash every damn inch of his body once they return, but the fool Light doesn't even respond. As they make their way back up, Light and the group spot the kids from earlier and descend to meet them. But before they can say much, a loud commotion erupts from deep within the forest. In a sudden burst of chaos, dozens of wolves come charging through the trees. The kids quickly panic and tell Light they need to fall back because there's no way they can take on that many enemies. But Light calmly tells them that the wolves aren't the real danger here because something far worse is coming. And a moment later, the ground trembles and a towering quad-scythe mantis bursts into view. The kids freeze in stunned disbelief at the sight before them. The mantis monster species was believed to have been eradicated 10 years ago, and they're clearly in no condition to take one on by themselves. The group's leader quickly tells Mia to use a bit of magic to try and distract the creature, but he already knows that won't be nearly enough. Desperate, he turns to Light and the others, urgently asking for help to throw the beast off long enough for everyone to escape safely. But when Light hears they're planning to retreat, he casually asks if that means they won't mind if he claims the kill himself. The kids look at him like he's insane since a mantis of that size has to be at least level 500. Still, Light calmly assures them there's no reason to panic because he and his companions are more than capable of handling it. Gold then steps forward to land the first strike. But to his surprise, the mantis blocks several of his blows with minimal damage, meaning its claws must be a lot tougher than he expected. Light steps in next and fires a blazing arrow directly at the mantis. But just before it hits, the mantis redirects it and sends it flying back toward him. Watching this unfold, the kids begin to worry that Light and the others might be in serious danger. So they urge Mia to hurry up and cast her spell. But she's too stunned to concentrate because she just witnessed Light unleash a high-grade combat spell without even chanting, and she had no idea that was even possible. Since the rest of the kids aren't familiar with magic, they can't really tell what counts as impressive, so they don't know whether to intervene or stay back. But Gold tells them it's better if they sit this one out, and to top it off, he offers them a brief lesson in what it means to be a true knight. For starters, he explains that a shield isn't just for blocking, and as the mantis lunges at him, he pivots and flawlessly counters the attack, completely destroying one of its claws. He then adds that a knight must never miss an opening, and with the mantis still reeling from the blow, Gold moves behind it and slices off one of its legs. Light follows up with another wave of fire arrows, but this time, when the mantis deflects them, the arrows curve mid-air and strike its back. Light has taken full control of their trajectory, so no matter what the mantis tries, the arrows will find their target every single time. Eventually, the mantis has all of its limbs blown clean off, and realizing it doesn't stand a chance against Light, it turns and makes a desperate dash toward the forest. Light is caught off guard, surprised that the creature is intelligent enough to recognize when it's completely outmatched and attempt a retreat. But he has no intention of letting it escape after everything that just happened. So he quickly casts a massive firewall in its path to block access to the trees, and Mia absolutely loses it. She's never witnessed someone deploy such wide area tactical magic so instantly in her entire life. And with the path forward sealed, the mantis has nowhere left to run. But it still has its wings, so in a last-ditch effort to survive, it launches itself into the air. But before it can flee, Nemumu leaps skyward after it and effortlessly shreds it to bits mid-flight. After she lands, Gold tells her she messed up, which really irritates her since she thought she was doing exactly what Light wanted, destroying the monster. But Gold explains that she also obliterated all the valuable parts, which means there's nothing left to sell once they return to town. Realizing her mistake, Nemumu immediately starts begging Light for forgiveness, but he assures her it's not a big deal. Off to the side, the kids are still frozen in place, unsure if they really just witnessed a human take down a quadscythe mantis, or if they collectively hallucinated the whole thing. And after a few minutes, as they dig through the remains, they stumble upon the mantis' magic gem. Miraculously, it's still intact, meaning Light can use it as proof of his achievement. But just before he departs, one of the kids approaches him and asks if he's part of a famous adventure party or something, because there's no way someone that powerful is just a rookie. But Light calmly replies that he and his friends are indeed ranked F, leaving the kids even more confused than before. With the battle now over, Mia conjures a ball of water using her magic and offers it to Light so he can rinse off all the mantis' goo. He's genuinely touched that she would use her precious mana for his sake, but she insists it's the least she can do. Since the sun is starting to set, the leader invites Light and the others to camp with them for the night. Not just because it's dangerous to travel in the dark, but also because Mia is dying to chat about magic with Light. And since there's no real downside to staying, Light agrees. Then, while the group is gathered around sharing a meal, Mia starts bombarding Light with all kinds of questions about his past. But since he obviously can't reveal his real background or future goals, he improvises a story and claims that both of his parents were exceptional mages, which explains why he's able to cast spells without needing incantations. That explanation seems to satisfy Mia, but her brother still doesn't get what's so impressive about it. Hearing him say that, Mia launches into a passionate rant about how insane Light's magic really was. She explains that there are 3 primary classifications of magic. First, there's combat class magic, typically used against individual enemies. Then there's tactical class magic, which can affect a broad area, like the firewall Light cast earlier. And finally, there's strategic class magic, capable of impacting the world on a much larger, even global scale. That includes cataclysmic spells like triggering earthquakes or calling down meteor strikes, which usually require a team of elite mages to pool their mana and recite lengthy incantations in unison to even attempt. While other races can cast powerful magic with relative ease, it's extremely rare for humans to reach that level. That's why Mia was so stunned to see someone like Light pull off a spell of that caliber so effortlessly. Her brother might not understand the mechanics of magic all that well, but from how Mia explained it, he can tell Light is on a completely different level. Still, he tells Mia she deserves credit too, since her abilities were strong enough to earn her a formal recommendation to the Duchy's Magic Academy. That piques Light's interest, so he asks if they mean the academy overseen by the Principality of Nine, the governing body formed by all 9 major races. Mia confirms that's the one, and Gold adds that being recognized by the Principality is no small feat, which makes it clear she's a highly capable mage. Her brother agrees, but says their circumstances made things difficult. Both of their parents passed away during a plague, and without the money to afford academy tuition, they had to form an adventuring party with their childhood friends, Gimra and Wordy, just to survive. Currently, their main objective is to earn enough through dungeon runs to eventually send Mia to that academy. But Mia says she's already happy just being able to travel with the people she cares about, so they don't need to go to extreme lengths for her. Her brother promises not to do anything reckless, and watching the two of them talk like that brings back memories for Light, specifically of the moments he used to share with his own younger sister. Right then, Mia and her brother ask Light what inspired him to become an adventurer. So sticking to his cover story, he tells them his parents died in a fire, and he was left with severe burns, prompting him to search for a rare magic potion that could heal his injuries. The story sounds so tragic that everyone falls silent, unsure of how to respond. Sensing the awkward tension, Gimra decides to break it by abruptly asking if Gold and Nemumu are a couple. Nemumu immediately bristles and snaps that she would never, under any circumstances, date someone like Gold. Gold, on the other hand, remains composed and casually replies that he has no interest in dating a woman as immature as Nemumu. While those two go back and forth in their usual bickering, somewhere deeper in the dungeon, Kaito is busy slaying orcs to collect the necessary biological samples Yanok needs for his next experiment, an attempt to bypass the level caps placed on every race. Now that they've gathered enough magical material, Yanok says the only thing left is a human test subject, and Kaido already knows exactly who he wants for that role. Time passes, and Light stops by the guild to exchange his most recent batch of magic stones. A crowd quickly gathers around him, amazed by the sheer volume of gems he managed to bring back. Ever since Light and his team took down the Quadscythe Manties, their reputation in the city has skyrocketed, and people have started referring to their group as Black Motley. Even the receptionists, who used to ignore them, have begun treating them with far more respect, and Light is genuinely pleased by all the attention, since that kind of recognition was part of his goal from the beginning. As he and the team are walking toward the dungeon, a man suddenly calls out to him from the road. Nemumu instantly goes on guard, but the man quickly assures them he means no harm. He introduces himself as Suvalin, and the guy next to him is Gilbert. They explain that they heard Light's party not only defeated a Quadscythe Mantis, but also made it to the 5th floor of the dungeon. And when they spotted him passing by, they just had to say something. At that moment, the rest of Suvalin and Gilbert's party shows up, reminding them it's time to enter the dungeon. So they say goodbye to Light and head inside. Watching them go, Light finds it nice to see he's inspiring hope among the other humans in town. However, not everyone is thrilled, since many from other races are openly envious of Light's growing strength and are convinced he's a fraud. Light expected as much though, but if they're not going to accept his achievements willingly, then he'll just have to make them recognize the truth by delivering results they can't ignore. And once he steps into the dungeon, Light informs Gold and Nemumu that he plans to return to the 5th floor today. But before heading down, he notices the same group of kids from before and decides to drop by and greet them. Mia and the others are surprised to see him again. It's been a while since they last crossed paths, but Mia's brother says it's actually great timing because Mia had been wanting to give something to Light. Mia seems a little shy at first, but she eventually hands Light a small clamshell container filled with ointment she made herself. She recalls him saying that he suffered severe burns across his body, so she created it to help ease some of the pain. Light is genuinely touched by the kind gesture, though it does make him feel a bit guilty for lying to her about the burns. Wanting to return the kindness, he pulls out one of his own items to give to Mia as a gift. It's a bracelet, and a beautiful one at that. So Mia hesitates, unsure if she should accept something that looks so valuable. But Light assures her that her gift truly meant a lot to him, and he wants her to have the bracelet as a token of appreciation. Mia lights up and promises to treasure it forever. However, after Light and his group head off, Amamu asks if he's really okay with giving away an SS-class item so casually. That bracelet was a wishing bracelet, capable of creating a small miracle depending on the wearer's intent, so Light thought it would be the perfect gift for someone like Mia. A short while later, they arrive on the 5th floor, which is completely blanketed in snow. This actually works to their advantage, as the snow provides excellent cover. Light assigns Gold and Nemumu the task of hunting Yetis while he's away, then activates a teleportation item that whisks him back to his throne room within the dungeon city. Once there, he sits down with a warm cup of tea and checks in with his team on the progress of their revenge operations. Ellie reports that preparations are almost complete, and they'll be ready to move to the next stage very soon. Light is pleased with the update and tells Ellie she's free to use whatever resources she needs to keep things running smoothly. In the meantime, he asks Mei to continue overseeing matters in the Abyss and instructs Aoyuki to remain focused on scouting through the ancient forest. Right then, Mizuna asks if there's anything he'd like her to handle in the meantime. Light isn't quite sure how to respond, since Mizuna's only real strength lies in monster combat, so she's not exactly useful outside of that. Still, not wanting her to feel left out, he tells her to remain on standby and protect the city in case a dangerous enemy shows up. That's more than enough for her, so she proudly declares that no one will get past her while she's on watch. Light smiles to himself, looking forward to the day his plan finally unfolds, and he wants to relish every second of the look of pure misery on Sasha's face when he stands in front of her. Elsewhere in the dungeon, Gilbert and Suvalin had made camp and were standing watch while their party members rested. At one point, Suvalin needed to relieve himself, so he stepped briefly into the woods. But when he returned, what he saw was horrifying. Gilbert's severed head lay on the ground, with Kaido standing calmly over the corpse. Their two sleeping companions had already been silently executed, and Kaido makes it clear this massacre isn't personal. It's fueled entirely by his deep-rooted hatred for the human race. Blinded by rage, Suvalin wants to strike back, but he knows full well he's outmatched. So thinking quickly, he throws down a smoke bomb and bolts, determined to escape and alert the guild about what happened. He feels confident about his chances. After all, most magic is useless unless the caster can see their target. But just when he thinks he's gotten away, something strikes him hard in the back. Looking up through the haze, he sees Kaido effortlessly flying toward him on a magical hoverboard. Moments later, Suvalin is knocked unconscious by Yanok, who berates Kaido for killing all the humans despite being crystal clear about needing them alive. But Kaido doesn't see what the big deal is because in his eyes, killing a few worthless humans shouldn't matter, especially since Yanok never cared about them in the first place. But Yanok is running out of time and viable test subjects, and his research is still unstable. So he points out that Suvalin will likely die from side effects long before the formula is perfected. So they'll need to hunt down more human lab rats and fast. After some time on the surface, we see Nemomu is in the middle of a tense back and forth with the guild receptionist, trying to push for Light's promotion. While the receptionist is well aware of how strong Light really is, she points out that they already bent the rules once to promote him from F rank to D rank recently, and not enough time has passed for them to justify another exception. That said, she adds that if Light pulls off something truly outstanding again, the guild will have no choice but to advance his rank. So Light decides that he's going to make it happen. Later that day at the inn, we see him holding a poster about an unknown killer targeting adventurers. So he figures that taking down this murderer should count as a major achievement, and he sets his sights on hunting him down. The problem is, he doesn't have a single clue to start with, which makes things tricky. Gold throws out the idea of using his gacha ability to draw a card that might help track the killer, but Light explains the cards are totally random, and the odds of pulling a tracking one are insanely low. Hearing that, Nemomu wonders if they should head back into the abyss to bring someone more skilled at tracking. While it's not a bad idea, the trip would take too much time, and Light doesn't want to waste a second when people's lives are at stake. The killer seems to be going after humans specifically, and he refuses to let that slide. Right then, the three of them sense a spatial distortion tearing open inside the room. Something's definitely about to arrive, so they immediately drop into formation and get ready for combat. But instead of a threat, Light is stunned to see Mia tumble out of the portal unconscious. He rushes forward and catches her, only to watch the miracle bracelet he gave her snap in half. He doesn't know what she just went through, but whatever it was, it clearly wasn't good, so he carries her gently to bed, hearing her mutter fragments in her sleep, saying she needs to warn him about something important. Light then casts a healing spell on her to speed up her recovery, but she's still too weak to speak. With no other choice, he quietly apologizes and prepares to read her mind. Using a high-level spell, he dives into her thoughts and is suddenly hit with a vivid memory, Mia and her team coming face to face with another party of human adventurers. The second party gave them a serious heads up that there were reports going around about an adventurer killer on the loose, and from what they heard, his targets were strictly human. The kids had heard whispers about it before, but they figured it was just some wild beast causing trouble. Still, thinking about it now, no regular monster would go after humans specifically. That realization made Mia uneasy because she knew full well that their team didn't stand a chance if they ever crossed paths with that killer. The other party felt the same, which is why they were in a rush to leave the dungeon. But before they took off, they told the kids that sticking around was a bad idea. And until someone puts that psycho down, this place isn't safe for human adventurers. The kids didn't take that warning lightly, and they agreed to head back up right away. But since they hadn't planned for such an abrupt exit, they were already feeling drained. Still, they had no choice but to push on, even as night fell, because stopping meant risking their lives. And just their luck right then, they hear Yanok's voice echo through the dark, warning them that it's dangerous to be wandering around so late. None of the kids had any clue that these two were the killers they were so desperate to avoid, so Mia, not suspecting a thing, suggests they warn them too. They let Yanok and Kaido know that there's been a string of murders happening in the dungeon and advise them to get out while they still can. Kaido and Yanok thank them for the tip, and for a second, the kids feel relieved, thinking they must just be regular adventurers too. But then Yanok casually starts complaining that he should have cleaned up their last ambush better, since all this chatter has made human adventurers more cautious and now they're avoiding the dungeon. That single sentence hits like a brick wall. So the kids freeze in horror as it dawns on them that they're standing face to face with the very murderers everyone's been terrified of. And Kaido looks like he's enjoying every second of watching their fears sink in. The group is paralyzed with fear, but they quickly understand the truth. There's no way all of them can make it out alive. So the three boys draw their weapons and yell for Mia to run, ready to hold them off with everything they've got. Kaido is visibly offended that mere humans would believe they could take him on. So when Mia's brother charges at him, he casually slashes him across the chest without a shred of hesitation. He does the same to the other two boys as well. They're not dead yet, but their injuries are so devastating that they're barely hanging on. Still, they force themselves upright again and shout at Mia to run, choosing to throw themselves at Kaido one last time. Their persistence only angers Kaido further, so he decides he's done playing around and goes in for the kill. Yanok shouts at him, furious that Kaido just ruined his chance to use the boys as test subjects. But Kaido snaps back, saying he's not about to let anyone who dared to disrespect him live, because fighting back like that, trying to protect someone, it's revolting. And he adds that Yanok can still perform his experiments if even one or two of them survive. Yanok admits that a magician does make for a valuable research subject, but he argues that those two boys could have been equally useful, so Kaido swears he won't kill any more lab rats from here on. Still, before Yanok starts working on Mia, Kaido wants to teach her how to crack a watermelon, because he's got needs that need satisfying. Yanok refuses to take part in that grotesque act, so he just tells Kaido not to kill Mia and turns away in disgust. Mia is shaking in terror as Kaido looms over her with sick intent. But before he can do anything, her brother miraculously staggers to his feet and screams at her to run. Yanok is astonished that the boy is still breathing with wounds like that, exactly the kind of resilience he needs in a subject. So he orders Kaido to make sure the boy is taken alive no matter what. The boy's body is nearly shutting down, but he doesn't care. All he's thinking about is giving Mia a chance to escape. He screams at her one more time to run, and even though she doesn't want to abandon him, she realizes this might be her only window. So with Kaido briefly distracted, she turns and sprints away. The moment Kaido notices she's escaping, he gets ready to chase after her, only to be intercepted by Elio's desperate attack. Elio doesn't stand a chance of hurting Kaido, but the move is enough to stall him and buy Mia a few extra seconds. Kaido is itching to finish off Mia's brother once and for all, but Yanok reminds him yet again that he needs the boy alive, so Kaido restrains himself from making a fatal move. While Elio staggered in place, his lips moved in a whisper, running through every strategy he could think of to buy Mia more time. His thoughts drifted back to a lesson he picked up from Gold during their first encounter. Gold had told him that while most people see a sword as a weapon and a shield as defense, true combat relies on creativity. The ability to surprise your opponent is what turns the tide of battle. That advice echoes in his head now, so Elio hurls his sword straight at Kaido. Thinking this was the actual attack, Kaido leans back to avoid the blade, but while he's focused on the sword, Elio charges in and slams his shield into Kaido's jaw, sending him crashing to the ground. That was all he had in him, but it landed, and Elio feels a flicker of pride. Even if this is the end, at least he got in one clean shot. Kaido, stunned and furious, can't process the fact that a human actually struck him. Enraged and humiliated, he ignores Yanok's command to keep Elio alive and fires a spear of light straight through his stomach with his sword. But somehow Elio doesn't die right away. But Kaido has no plans to end things quickly because he wants to make him suffer for daring to touch his precious face. Yanok cuts in, warning him not to waste any more time because if Maya escapes and word gets out, their entire operation will be exposed. Kaido's still fuming, but he gets the point, and with a scowl, he turns and takes off after her. Mia had been running flat out, heart pounding in her chest. Just as the dungeon's exit comes into view, 3 glowing swords shoot down in front of her, blocking the path. She freezes in place, eyes wide because she hadn't expected Kaido to catch up so fast. But he's wielding Grandius, the Phantasma-class weapon once held by the Elven Queendom, a legendary blade that lets its user spawn and control endless blades of light. He tells her it's pointless to run. As long as he's using Grandius, she won't get far, but Mia refuses to surrender. Gritting her teeth, she chants a quick spell and hurls a spray of sharp icicles toward Kaido, just enough to obscure his view, and then she turns and dashes into the forest, using the momentary distraction to vanish into the trees. But after a few more minutes of running, Kaido catches up to her again and knocks her to the ground. He sneers and tells her she should feel honored to be sacrificed for the rise of a future legendary hero like himself. But Mia screams back that he doesn't deserve that title one bit. She says a real legendary hero isn't just strong, but also compassionate like light. But Kaido, on the other hand, is just a pathetic coward who gets off on pushing around people weaker than him. That hits a nerve, so her words drag up memories Kaido would rather forget. How the other elves used to laugh at him, call him a useless bully who only picks fights with those who can't fight back. That humiliation was part of why he got exiled from Elven society. But instead of taking the blame, Kaido convinced himself that everyone else just failed to see how amazing he really was. Consumed by rage, he loses control again and completely forgets about keeping Nia alive. So he raises his weapon to finish her off. Mia knows she won't survive the blow, but she still refuses to give in. She's desperate, mentally scrambling to find some way to reach Light, to cry out for help, and that's when the bracelet finally activates. Back in the present, after witnessing what Mia and the others went through, Light is seething with fury. Without hesitation, he turns to Gold and Nemamu and tells them to gear up, because he's about to bring hell down on those elves. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, Yanok is doing everything he can to heal Elio. But from the looks of it, his body is way too far gone. The damage is beyond repair, and Yanok is genuinely frustrated because losing such a prime test subject feels like a huge waste. Then Kaido walks in, and Yanok immediately demands to know whether he managed to catch the girl. But Kaido shrugs and says he lost her. Yanok starts freaking out because he can't believe what he just heard, and he starts questioning how the hell Kaido gets outsmarted by a human girl. Kaido snaps back that it's not his fault because how was he supposed to know that she could vanish into thin air? Yanok's mind races, refusing to believe it, but the evidence is there, and somehow that girl had access to teleportation magic or items, so there's no denying it now, which means they're in serious trouble because if Mia tells the guild what went down, it won't take long before word gets to the Elf Nation, and once they find out Kaido stole the Grandiose Sword, they'll be coming for him no question. Worse yet, the Elf Nation won't just send anyone, they'll send the head knight himself, a warrior said to be around level 3000. With his entire personal guard ranked no lower than 2000. In short, if that happens, Kaido and by extension Yanok are as good as dead. Their only chance at survival now lies in testing Yanok's experiments in hopes of making Kaido powerful enough to go toe-to-toe with the elite Elven Knights. But just as they're preparing to leave, Light suddenly appears and calmly tells them they're not going anywhere. Kaido immediately recognizes him as the same guy who called him out for cutting the line when he first entered the dungeon. But what truly throws him off is how a human managed to sneak up on him without him sensing a thing, especially considering he's level 1500. Light's expression drops when he sees Gimra and Wordy lying motionless on the ground. He's too late to save them, and the best he can do is gently shut their eyes and whisper an apology for not arriving sooner. Meanwhile, Gold rushes over to Elio and lifts him up. He still has a faint pulse, which means there might still be hope. Light focuses and channels a healing spell into Elio, then turns back toward Kaido and demands an explanation. Actually no. He immediately corrects himself because he doesn't care about their twisted reasons. The moment they made his friends suffer, they sealed their fate, and Light swears by his name that they're going to feel a level of agony so intense, they'll beg for death to come early. He then turns to Nemamu and Gold and tells them to stand back because this is something he wants to handle alone. Kaido meanwhile is completely insulted by the idea that a low-tier human dares to think he can take him on solo. He's had enough of being mocked and defied by lesser beings, so he promises to savor every second of tearing Light apart. But the moment he launches his first attack, Light stops it cold with his staff, and honestly he's a little underwhelmed because he expected more from Kaido, and then Light slams his staff forward, nearly knocking Kaido unconscious. Driven mad, Kaido goes all in and activates the full power of his sword, unleashing wave after wave of radiant blades aimed straight at Light. But even as dozens of glowing blades fly toward him, some even slicing through parts of his cloak, so Light calmly responds with a burst of ice magic, freezing and deflecting every last attack with ease. Kaido's face twists in disbelief, and he stomps and rages like a child throwing a tantrum, unable to comprehend how a mere human could be outperforming him. He starts ranting about how, with the ancient sword of Maestro in his hands, this should be impossible. Light at first wasn't even listening, but the second Kaido mentions Maestro, his expression sharpens. That's the exact kind of clue he's been searching for, so he presses Kaido, asking how he knows about the Maestros. So Kaido laughs and says of course he knows, because he was born with the blood of a Maestro in his veins. After finding out that Kaido carries the bloodline of a Maestro, Light immediately tells Nemamu and Gold that the mission has shifted. His original plan was to wipe Kaido out right then and there, but now he intends to haul him down into the abyss and rip every shred of information straight out of his mind. The two understand right away, and they tell him they'll take care of Yanok while he handles Kaido, but Yanok protests, saying it's completely unfair for everyone to gang up on him when he's not even built for combat. Still, he's not stupid, since he planned ahead for something like this. He waves toward the shadows behind him, where two motionless figures stand, and the two begin to shift grotesquely, their forms mutating to reveal the truth that they're the product of Yanok's twisted experiments. Hybrids born from forcibly fusing humans and monsters into a single, horrifying entity. Yanok starts going on about how he fused humans with monsters to break through the natural limits of the human body. He says he would have gone even further with his work, but it takes a ridiculous number of human test subjects to get a hybrid stable enough to function, so he plans to keep collecting more whenever he gets the chance. Gold, Nemomu, and Light are sickened by what he's done. But what makes it worse is that Light actually recognizes one of the hybrids. It's the same man he met back in town, someone he now regrets not being able to protect from becoming another piece of Yanok's twisted research. There's no saving him anymore, so Light quietly asks Nemomu and Gold to end the poor man's suffering. Without hesitation, Nemomu and Gold slice clean through the hybrids' bodies, trying to grant them peace, but Yanok just smirks and says it's not over yet. He reveals that the creatures were engineered to regenerate from any kind of damage, so simple cuts won't be enough to bring them down. Light starts to worry for Nemomu and Gold's safety, but he's got his hands full. Kaido keeps launching sword energy at him non-stop, and Light can't afford to take his eyes off the fight. Nemomu and Gold keep cutting down the hybrids again and again, but no matter what they do, the bodies repair themselves within seconds. Yanok watches from a distance, mocking them for thinking they stood a chance against his perfect creations. Both Nemomu and Gold are fed up, not just with Yanok's smug taunts, but with the thought of leaving those poor souls trapped in such agony, so they both decide it's time to use their ultimate techniques and end it quickly. Both Nemomu and Gold channel mana into their weapons and slash through the hybrids with everything they've got. Yanok starts taunting them again, thinking there's no way they'll actually manage to put down his creations. But then he notices something strange, and the hybrids aren't getting back up. In fact, they look pretty damn dead, so panic sets in as he stares at the aftermath in disbelief, and he can't accept that the pinnacle of all his research could be wiped out so effortlessly. While he's still frozen in shock, standing over the ashes of what used to be his experiments, Nemomu casually walks up behind him and kicks him straight between the legs, just to shut him up once and for all. Meanwhile, Light has been dominating Kaido with his relentless magic attacks, and every time one gets close, Kaido's face contorts with panic. Light finds it hilarious, especially considering how smug Kaido was acting just moments earlier, refusing to let some pathetic human look down on him. Kaido digs deep and activates the Holy Sword's final form, stacking multiple enchantments onto the blade and massively boosting its range. Light is mildly impressed because the sword really does seem insanely flexible. But no matter how flashy it looks, Kaido's aim is trash, so he cannot land a single hit on Light. Frustrated, Kaido starts yelling that Light's just a coward for dodging everything and insists he'd be dead already if he actually stood still, which is kind of the entire purpose of dodging. But Light decides to play along. He plants his feet, doesn't move an inch, and tells Kaido to take his best shot. Kaido assumes Light must have lost it, but he's not about to waste the opportunity. He charges up, jumps high, and brings the sword down with everything he's got. The hit connects, but to his horror, it barely leaves a scratch. Kaido stands there stunned, since there's no way a regular human should be able to tank a clean blow from Grandius. Light just stares him down and says he's welcome to keep swinging if that helps him understand the gap between them. Kaido goes wild, unleashing a flurry of attacks, slashing again and again, but not a single one even phases Light. Eventually, Light gets bored, so with a quick flick, he shatters Grandius's enchantment, drives a punch into Kaido's gut, and then knocks him flying with a clean shot to the face. Kaido hits the ground hard, bouncing across it until he finally stops, bruised and bloodied. Light walks over and towers above him, his expression cold. He says he's got plenty of questions for Kaido, so he's not going to kill him just yet, not until he's made him feel a fraction of the suffering he caused his victims. Kaido quickly realizes Light isn't messing around, and there's zero chance he's fighting his way out of this, so with no other options, he drops to his knees and starts pleading for his life. He admits he's from the Elven Nation and was once poised to lead the White Knights as their next commander, and in exchange for mercy, he swears he'll give Light any intel he wants. Right now, Kaido looks absolutely pathetic, and the sight of him makes Light's blood boil. This was the guy parading around like some so-called legendary hero, and now he's groveling the second things don't go his way. A real hero fights until their last breath, standing for something even when the odds are hopeless. But Kaido, for all his ego, couldn't even manage that. Honestly, Elio, Gimra, and Wordy were the real heroes because they faced off against Kaido and Yanok to protect Mia, fully knowing they didn't stand a chance. Light turns to the lifeless bodies of Gimra and Wordy and offers them a quiet apology for not being able to save them. But he promises he'll do everything he can to make sure Leo pulls through. With that in mind, he says it's time to head back to the abyss immediately. Right then, Kaido nervously asks what's going to happen to him, so Light tells him bluntly that he and Yanok are both coming along, since he's not done with them yet, not until they answer every question he has. A second later, Light activates his teleport spell, and when Kaido and Yanok open their eyes again, they're both stunned to find themselves in a totally unfamiliar location. Yanok is in disbelief, demanding to know where they are, so Light tells him they're in the deepest layer of the Abyss dungeon. Yanok can't wrap his head around it because they were just in Dagas a moment ago, and now they've been warped all the way to the most brutal dungeon in the world. But he still doesn't get why Light dragged them here. Light simply replies that this is where he lives, so Yanok and Kaido stare at him like he's insane. No one in their right mind would choose to live in a place like this. But the moment they say that, Nemamu starts stomping Yanok's back flat for daring to suggest that Light would lie. The sound draws the others, who quickly gather around to see what's going on. They're excited to see Light again, but when they spot the two battered elves, they can't help but ask why he brought such trash with him. Light explains that these two are notorious criminals who used innocent people for unspeakable experiments, acts that led to countless deaths, including the lives of two close friends of his. Still, they're carrying knowledge about what a maestro truly is, and for that reason alone, Light decided to delay their execution for the time being. The moment the girls hear what Kaido and Yanok have done, their expressions darken, and their eyes lock onto the two criminals with pure killing intent. One by one, they start listing off the horrible things they'd like to do to make them pay for their crimes. Light figured they'd react like this, but he steps in and firmly tells them both of these monsters need to stay alive until every bit of intel about Maestro is wrung out of them. The girls grit their teeth, but agree to rein themselves in if that is what Light has decided. With that settled, Light turns to Gold and asks her to handle Elio's recovery, then tells Nemamu to follow him because he's going to give Gimra and Wordy the funeral they deserve. Just as he's about to walk off, Yanok suddenly drops to his knees, begging Light to wait. He pleads for mercy, insisting that none of this was really his fault, and it was all Kaido's idea. But Kaido snaps back, blaming Yanok for everything, saying he only went along with it because Yanok promised he could help him surpass his physical limits if he supplied enough test subjects. The two immediately start bickering, trying to shove the blame onto each other, until Light shuts them up and throws out a single question. Back when they were pretending to be deities, slaughtering and torturing innocent people like they were nothing, did either of them ever spare someone who begged for their life? Kaido and Yanok go completely still because they both know they never spared even a shred of mercy for any of their victims. And that heavy silence tells Light everything he needs to know, so he calmly declares that they will be treated the exact same way, and there is nothing they can do to change that. Sometime later, Mia slowly wakes up at the inn in Dagas and finds Light sitting quietly by her bedside. She blinks and asks what happened, because the last thing she remembers was running for her life from Kaido. Light explains that he and the others reached her just in time, right before the murderers were about to catch her, so they brought her back to safety so she could recover. He also lets her know that Elio's wounds were treated, and he pulled through. But when Mia nervously asks about Gimra and Wordy, Light doesn't have anything good to say. He gently hands her a lock of their hair and tells her that Gimra and Wordy both died from their injuries before he could reach them in time. Mia breaks down, crushed by the loss, though she still thanks Light from the bottom of her heart. Without him, she and her brother wouldn't be alive right now. Light stands up to leave and give her space to process everything, but he cannot shake a faint sense of guilt, because moments like this make him question whether using his power purely for revenge is really the right path. The following day, Light makes his way over to the Adventurers Guild to file a report on the incident involving the killers and hand over all the important details. but he conveniently leaves out the part about him hauling Kaido and Yanok away himself, so the guild still believes those two are somewhere out there. As far as the guild is concerned, those two are still at large, in recognition of the information he provided, and for saving 2 potential victims. The guild grants Light and his team an official promotion to C rank. Afterward, Light sits down with Mia and Elio to talk about what's next for them. When he asks what they plan to do, Elio says they've decided to retire from adventuring and return to their hometown. Light is a little surprised and tells them they could probably find another team to work with. Elio agrees, but says it wouldn't feel right to move on so quickly after losing Gimra and Wordy. Besides, they want to take what remains of them home so their friends can be laid to rest properly. Light respects that, but turns to Mia and asks what she plans to do about her magic studies. After all, that was her whole reason for becoming an adventurer in the first place, to save up enough to attend the academy. Mia says she's going to focus on teaching herself for now, and she plans to work hard so that next time she crosses paths with Light, she won't be a beginner anymore. Once Mia and Elio head out, Light decides it's time to return to the Abyss and check on things, and when he arrives, he's greeted by May and Ellie. He asks for an update, and May hands him a file summarizing everything they've pulled from interrogating Kaido and Yanok. According to the information, descendants of a maestro are said to level up faster than normal people. There's also an ancient legend claiming that if a maestro isn't stopped, they could eventually bring about the end of the world. This revelation makes Light curious about just how powerful a maestro has to be to hold the potential to wipe out the whole world single-handedly. But sadly, they do not have any more information on the subject. The intel they gathered mostly came from a conversation Kaido had with the White Knights captain a few years back. Even after Ellie tapped into her forbidden magic to extract the memories, most of them were broken or incomplete, leaving them with only fragments of the truth. Light then asks about the current state of Yanok and Kaido, so Ellie opens a portal to show him, and the two of them look like they've been dragged through absolute misery. Since there's nothing left to extract from them, Light decides it's time to dispose of them for good. He summons a creature known as Dead Man's Banquet, and it consumes Kaido and Yanok in a viciously gruesome manner. With that problem finally resolved, Light turns to Ellie and asks how her other preparations are coming along. She happily reports that everything is in place, and he can begin his revenge on Sasha whenever he's ready. But before that though, she wants to capture the White Knights first, since every one of them is reportedly a submaestro, and she doesn't know what kind of abilities they might have. Their vice captain Mikhail is also Sasha's fiancé, so Ellie suggests he would make a perfect hostage, and Light is genuinely impressed by how thoroughly she planned everything. At the same time in the Elf Nation, Sasha is having the time of her life retelling the story to Mikhail about how she betrayed Light and made him beg for his life with a pathetic look on his face. Mikhail clearly enjoys every detail, even saying he wishes he had witnessed it himself. He once went on a mission to wipe out a human village, and he loved seeing the humans pleading for mercy. Both of them laugh and bond over how much pleasure they get from watching humans suffer, completely unaware that Light is preparing to return the favor for every pain Sasha ever inflicted on him. Later over on the Elf continent, Sasha lounges comfortably inside her carriage. Still glowing from her meeting with Mikhail, she feels genuinely lucky, like there's no way she could have ended up with a better fiancé. Her maid glances over at her with pride, already lost in thoughts of wedding bells and decorations. A bit flustered, Sasha reminds her that the ceremony's still a long way off, but the maid insists it's never too early to start preparing. Just then, the carriage jolts to a sudden stop as a frail man drops a heavy load of crates right in their path. His furious elf master immediately starts whipping him, shouting at him to hurry up. Watching the pitiful scene, Sasha scoffs, muttering that humans really are completely useless. Right then, Light steps into a shadowy alley, and Sasha's heart nearly skips because she recognizes him in an instant. Stunned, she jumps down from the carriage and rushes after him, thinking her eyes must be playing tricks on her. She weaves through the tight back streets, but he's nowhere in sight, and she ends up stuck at a dead end. Convinced she imagined the whole thing, Sasha lets out a sigh of relief that Light isn't really here, but as she turns to leave, her eyes fall on a message left by Light himself, calling her to meet him at the Great Tower. The shock hits her all at once, and she screams, overwhelmed. Her maid dashes over in a panic while Sasha crumbles, thinking this might cost her everything she earned from the mission to kill Light. Watching the chaos unfold from a nearby rooftop, Light quietly tells Ellie it's time to take care of the rest. Hearing the order, Ellie starts daydreaming about how brutally she's going to destroy Sasha for laying a finger on her beloved master. With everything in place, they finally turn around and head off to start the final act of their revenge. Meanwhile, over at the Elven barracks, two soldiers, Anhia and Kia, are having fun tossing knives at a beaten man. Not far off, a sleazy elf named Sharfat gropes his human slave in full view of everyone, and his fellow soldiers and even their captain watch on with visible disgust. Sharfat casually starts talking about Kaido and Yanok, mentioning how Kaido snapped and went on a killing spree before getting taken out by a human. So now the higher command wants them to avenge his death. Sharfat doesn't care, and he says Kaido was a traitor who abandoned his team, but one of the elves nearby insists that it's still their responsibility to avenge a fallen comrade. While Anhia and Kia keep tormenting the poor guy, Sharfat tells them to finish him off already. They refuse, saying they'll play with their toy however they want. Then they take a jab at Sharfat for being such a public creep, which clearly pisses him off. Behind them, Must calmly tells the two that ending a human's life should be considered a mercy, and it's an honor to be slain by an elf. Sharfat rolls his eyes and says Must takes everything too seriously. But Must just replies that knowing when to act with purpose is what separates them from beasts. Out of nowhere, the captain snaps and orders everyone to shut it. And just the weight of his aura is enough to shut them all up on the spot. He tells Anhia and Kia to knock off the torture games, then shoots a glance at Must, telling him to loosen up for once. After that, he shouts a command at Sharfat, who immediately kills the human slave without hesitation. With the body now still, the captain turns to Anhia and Kia and tells them to clean up the mess. They nod without question, and he then orders Must to prep for the next assignment. Off to the side, Sasha stands frozen, tears falling as she breaks down from witnessing another human die. So Sharfat gently tells her she can go rest in her quarters. The frightened girl wastes no time and runs off, and the captain turns his attention back to Sharfat. He warns him to quit messing around with humans, reminding him that elves treat their lineage like something sacred. Bearing children with lower races isn't just frowned upon, it's a disgrace. Instead, the captain reminds him that elves have always married into the bloodline of the maestros, and if Sharfat wants to uphold that tradition, he better start acting like it. Sharfat scoffs and says it doesn't matter because they've all stopped growing stronger anyway, even with their so-called elite blood. That's when the captain shoots back, telling him it's because their bloodline's been watered down through generations of crossbreeding. Sharfat finally drops the act and says he never planned to have kids with any of the slaves, and he just enjoys toying with them. He finds it hilarious to trick weak girls into thinking they're special, just to watch them bend over backward trying to win him over. As Anhia and Kia drag off the slave's corpse behind him, they call Sharfat a twisted freak with no shame. Bored now, Sharfat says maybe it's time to get rid of Sasha too, and asks if the captain wants to handle her execution. But the captain refuses and stands up, saying they've got more important things to do, like getting revenge for Kaido and restoring the Elven Queen's pride, even if Kaido was a disgrace who walked away from them. Later that night, Sasha lies asleep in her room until a strange noise wakes her. Off in the distance, a magic circle flickers to life and summons a massive tower right in the heart of the forest. At the very top of that glowing spire, Ellie appears and waits silently for Sasha to arrive. Back in her room, Sasha stares at the strange tower from her window, quietly wondering if that's the place Light meant when he left that message. Somewhere else in the forest, an elf hauls a group of slaves through the trees, only to be ambushed by a savage Orthos. Panicking, the elf ditches the children and bolts, leaving them to face the beast alone as it marches toward them. By the next morning, the carriage driver shows up at a local tavern, where the latest gossip is already flying. The forest is crawling with vicious monsters, and people are starting to freak out. One elf suggests they might be coming from that weird tower that popped up, but another mutters that the queendom won't even send scouts to check since it's too short on manpower to risk it. Across the city, the queendom's authorities have plastered bounty posters everywhere, offering rewards to anyone with intel about the mysterious tower. Light stops to glance at one of them, a little taken aback by how many elves are signing up to face the dark threat. Not far off, two cocky elven adventurers catch sight of Nemamu and instantly start hitting on her. Boasting about being level 150, they urge her to ditch the Metal Geezer Gold and the kid tagging along. But Nemamu shuts them down with a cold glare, clearly unimpressed. Light then steps in, calmly asking the pair to back off. And that's when things get ugly. Offended, the two elves swing at him, but Light stops them in an instant with a snap thunderbolt. Seeing him cast without even a chant, the crowd quickly realizes they're dealing with the infamous Black Motley. The crowd freezes, then slowly backs off, giving them space. Light walks away with his group, knowing full well that rumors about them will be everywhere by sundown. And as they move through the streets, he silently hopes Aoyuki's holding things together on her end. Deep in the forest, a band of elves marches forward, using a chained human girl as their guide while they scan the woods for clues. One of them nervously mutters about the danger, but another smugly says they'll just let the girl act as bait if monsters show up. Thinking their plans rock solid, they push forward until the girl stumbles to the ground, trying to catch her breath. Her master immediately threatens a beating, so she scrambles back to her feet without a word. As the arrogant elf keeps ranting about how pathetic humans are, a single drop of drool splashes on his hand. He glances up and sees the massive beast towering above him. But before he can scream, the Orthos flattens his skull like a melon. The other elves watch in horror as the monster effortlessly picks up their friend's body, then proceeds to tear them apart one by one. When it finally looms over the chained girl, she freezes, thinking death is inevitable. But instead the creature sniffs her and slowly backs away, disappearing into the trees before she even realizes she's still alive. Right as she starts to process what just happened, a group of rough-looking thugs strolls onto the scene. She assumes the worst, just got spared from a monster, only to fall into worse hands. But to her surprise, they pour healing potion over her wounds. Confused, she stares at them, wondering why strangers would help someone like her. They then start talking about finding her some new clothes, something to eat, and even a walking stick to help her walk. Then their leader casually reports back to Ayuki, letting her know they've just rescued another survivor. And while Ayuki relaxes at the top of the towering structure, Ellie steps up and asks how her mission's going. She's curious whether keeping so many monsters in check across the forest is wearing her down, but the catgirl simply says she's managing. A bit thrown off by how casually she responds, Ellie asks if she's really okay handling any intruders that might interfere with their operation. Ayuki shrugs it off again, but Ellie can't help doubting her, thinking Light might have dumped too much on one person's shoulders. She worries that a single mistake with the monsters could cost an innocent life, but Ayuki tells her she's being paranoid. Ellie then questions if they're really meant to serve as Light's obedient puppets, following orders without ever hesitating. Ayuki confirms without hesitation that's exactly their role, and she insists that loyalty to their master comes above everything else. But Ellie pushes back, saying Ayuki's acting like a mindless pet. That strikes a nerve, and Ayuki snaps, threatening to kill her for speaking against their master. But Ellie doesn't flinch, and she calmly asks if Ayuki honestly believes she can take her in a fight. Ayuki says she's willing to find out, and tension instantly thickens between them. Just as they're about to throw down in a bloody showdown, the thugs call out to Ayuki that they've returned to base, so the two calm down. At the base, the group delivers the rescued girl to an elderly man who looks after all the survivors. Once the girl is safe at the foster shelter, she thanks the thugs with a quiet voice, and they tell her to stay strong. Watching Ayuki care for each human with such precision, Ellie finally feels reassured, so maybe she really can be trusted to protect the forest alone. At night, Sasha stares out her window, worried sick about reaching Light. The monsters now swarming the forest are way too dangerous for her to handle, and she knows the White Knights will soon start sniffing around. That'll blow her cover for failing to eliminate him, and with her back against the wall, she decides there's only one option left, so she'll head there herself and finish the job no matter what it takes. By the next morning, the elven aristocracy gathers for a formal council to address the tower. Around the table, the elven chancellor recommends sending in the White Knights to investigate, but Captain Hardy shuts it down cold, claiming his elite forces aren't needed for something so trivial. The nobles quietly observe their standoff, but none of them dares speak up, and only the queen holds the authority to end the debate. At last, the elf queen raises her voice and sides with Hardy, declaring that his proposal makes the most sense. So she orders that the bounty be raised to attract more adventurers to investigate the forest in their place. Once her decision is final, the nobles quietly disperse, though the chancellor lingers, clearly irritated that Hardy got his way. Afterward, Hardy meets with his mother and thanks her for sparing his soldiers from being sent on a scouting job. She affectionately tells him there's no chance she'd risk her precious son on something so low tier. Hardy vents about the chancellor, annoyed that he's playing political games in the middle of a crisis. The queen just laughs, entertained by his frustration. But Hardy insists this isn't some joke. He believes the Chancellor's real goal is to tear down the monarchy altogether. But she's confident that as long as her son stands guard, he won't get far. She then rises and warns Hardy that the tower itself is the true threat, not the scheming Chancellor. Her tone grows serious as she says it might be capable of wiping out their entire kingdom, leaving Hardy stunned. He wonders aloud if this is the beginning of another Dark Lord's rise. The Queen admits it's possible, but believes that if all the other races unite their strength, they might be able to stop him. Still, she notes that the emergence of a Dark Lord always leads to the rise of a hero from the human world, and that could be even more dangerous. She's clearly frustrated they can't just eliminate humanity altogether to prevent that risk. But Hardy reminds her that doing so would only make them look like the villains. Still, he reflects that if the humans really do manage to produce someone on par with a maestro, the elves will be forced to either befriend or destroy them to stay safe. The word maestro sparks a memory in Hardy, and he recalls the human named Light, rumored years ago to be one. The Queen quickly brushes it off, saying that man was eliminated long ago for being too weak. Hardy turns away to leave, but as he walks out, a cold thought lingers. Humans deserve extinction for all the chaos they've brought upon his people. Meanwhile, over in the Elven City, Light's group strolls through the streets when they notice the two adventurers from earlier staring daggers at them. So the group wonders if those guys plan to pick another fight. Not far behind, Sasha catches a glimpse of Light's face and instantly calls out to him. Nemamu and Gold instinctively brace for combat, but Light signals them to stand down. Sasha then steps forward and asks him to take off his mask, but he replies that it's only covering some old burn scars, but she doesn't buy it, and instead she reaches out and knocks the mask off, exposing him completely. Though Light can barely hold back his urge to put Sasha in her place immediately, he lets her remove the mask from his face, choosing instead to save that sweet revenge for the perfect moment. Nemamu, enraged at Sasha's smug little attitude, tries to lash out at her, but Light steps in before it spirals into something worse. He slowly pulls back his hood, revealing a face twisted with gruesome burn scars. Sasha recoils at the sight, visibly shaken, and recognizes that this isn't the man she was hunting for. She turns and walks away. Once she's gone, Light can't help but feel satisfied, knowing the illusion of those burn scars worked like a charm, and pushing things further would have been a dangerous risk. He thanks Gold and Nemamu for not jumping into the confrontation. Gold grumbles that Sasha's unbearable, and Light agrees, recalling how hard he once fell for her twisted lies back in the day. Refocusing, he reminds the others to stay on mission, then heads deeper into the woods with them. As the trio dashes through the trees, the two elf brats from earlier show up again, hot on their trail. Light tells the fools to back off, but they don't listen. Eventually, they reach a dense, secluded part of the forest, where Light was supposed to rendezvous with some of his subordinates, but no one's there yet, so he decides to wait. What surprises him, though, is that the elves somehow manage to keep pace with them. The elves act like they've cornered him, refusing to let Light slip away, so he smirks and compliments their nerve. Nemamu scoffs, saying it's a shame that these two punks waste their talent bullying people instead of doing something useful. But the elves sneer back, claiming it's a divine privilege for any human to die by the hands of their sacred elf race. Tired of hearing their nonsense, Light casually calls for Mira to handle them, and since the elves can't detect anyone else nearby, they think he's bluffing, so they mock him, saying he's just acting cocky because his party got a bit of fame. That's when a chilling presence appears behind them, and a creepy woman materializes out of nowhere. Mira tells the stunned elves that they've just signed their own death warrant by disrespecting her master. Her arms twist into grotesque, flesh-ripping jaws that clamp down on the elves and devour them alive in a flash of gore. Once the slaughter ends, Light apologizes for having her deal with the mess, but Mira shrugs it off, saying even if the elves tasted like garbage, she's always happy to serve him. Gold admits her power is impressive, but says she's downright terrifying. Surprisingly, Nemamu agrees with him, despite usually taking the opposite side. Smiling faintly, Mira reminds them both that there's no need to be afraid. After all, they're friends now. Right then, 3 more of Light's followers show up, led by a poised maid named Ice Heat. Close behind her, Suzu and Jack step in, both prepped and ready to roll for whatever lies ahead in the forest. After Light gives them his thanks, Ice Heat glances at Suzu and tells her to take the lead. Suzu gives a soft nod, but that doesn't fly, and Ice Heat immediately scolds her for not showing proper respect. Worried they might have offended their master, Suzu's musket, Locke, steps in and quickly apologizes on her behalf. Knowing Suzu's always been the quiet type, Light just waves it off because he doesn't mind her silence. Before long, the group starts moving, and Gold takes a moment to thank Jack for hopping in with the squad. Jack throws him a grin and says it's just bro code, so he couldn't leave him grinding alone. Gold appreciates the gesture, but Jack admits the real credit goes to Ellie for sending him in the first place. Still, he insists there's no way he'd ditch his boy Light. But just as the words leave his mouth, all the girls suddenly shoot him nasty looks. Jack blinks, thrown off, asking if they're actually mad about the nickname he just used for their master. While Light stays quiet, Jack shrugs and tells the girls they're overthinking it. As far as he's concerned, they're all partners. He casually drops the nickname again, saying that if they keep treating Light like some untouchable king, they're only making him lonelier. Even Gold starts sweating watching Jack push their buttons, and finally, Light steps in and tells him to take it down a notch. He reminds the girls that Jack's got special permission, and it's fine if he uses that name. They all nod without complaint, but the tension in the group only gets heavier as they push forward. Light then glances over at Ice Heat and notices something different about her. She's ditched the usual maid uniform from the Abyss and swapped into combat gear. Curious, he wonders why the sudden change. So Ice Heat explains that she's been training under May in maid duties. But since they're out on the surface now and there's going to be action, she figured battle attire was the smarter choice. Mira laughs and tells her to just take off the whole maid outfit if it's going to drag her down. That hits a nerve, so Ice Heat snaps back and tells Mira to quit messing around in front of everyone like this isn't serious. As the two of them start arguing, Light feels weirdly relieved that the gloomy air around them has finally lightened up a bit. At the same time, Jack leans toward Gold and asks if he's been slacking off while Jack wasn't around, but Gold just shakes his head like always. Watching them mess around like that, Light gets the sense that the team's going to be alright. Then he shifts his focus to Suzu and explains that she's painfully shy, and she only talks freely through her musket, Locke. Turning to Nemu, he suddenly asks if Suzu's even technically a girl. Caught off guard, Nemu nods, but Light explains that her identification card listed her as androgynous, so he figures he'll need to look up what the hell that means later. Meanwhile, at the tower, Ellie waits anxiously beside Aoyuki, and as soon as Light's group arrives, Nizuna and the other two girls rush over excitedly to welcome him. Ellie wastes no time and guides them inside the massive tower, revealing an enormous, sleek interior. She explains that every room here is fitted with advanced tech she reverse engineered from the Abyss's core, making the tower completely secure from any outside threats. As they enter, they're greeted by a massive dragon, but Ellie casually tells them not to worry, it's just her pet. Then she points out that the top floor was specifically designed as a wedding hall for Light's final act of revenge, so the entire group heads up. Once there, Light climbs the stairs and settles into his throne, while Ellie offers to go over the plan again to keep everyone aligned. She explains that the goal is to celebrate Sasha's upcoming marriage before delivering the payback she's had coming. Though she thinks Light's original plan was solid, Ellie admits she tweaked it a bit to spice things up. She tells them that the Elven White Knights are the Queendom's top warriors, so she's arranged for them to face off against their own elite fighters and get utterly humiliated. After that, she plans to capture the knights and cut off the elves' military strength. That way, they'll gain access to all the intel they need on the Maestro, and eventually, the rest of the 9 races too. Ellie designed the massive tower not just for drama, but as a full-blown fortress to serve as their command base. She then summons a shadow clone of Light, explaining it'll help the Black Motley squad level up independently, while he hangs back and monitors everything. Impressed by how thorough she's been, Light commends Ellie for her work. She tells him that Aoyuki is already in the forest, luring Sasha toward the tower using her beasts. Surrounded by those terrifying monsters, Sasha's clearly rattled, but she keeps pressing on. She knows the only way to finally feel at peace is to confront Light. Back inside, Light ponders how things might play out once Sasha shows up. Ellie grins and says her pet dragon will give all their visitors a warm welcome. Outside, when Sasha lays eyes on the enormous beast, fear takes over, and she immediately retreats. Watching everything unfold through a camera feed, Ellie turns to Light and says it's only a matter of time. Sasha will be back, and this time she'll bring the White Knights with her. Finally, she promises to set up the perfect clash, with their troops going head-to-head against the elves, calling it a showdown worthy of Light himself. Afterward, in the Elven Queendom, Sasha gathers the nobles for an emergency royal meeting. She tells them that a swarm of giant beasts has started circling a mysterious tower, which has caused other creatures to scatter across the outer parts of the forest. She also reveals that a terrifying dragon now stands guard over the tower itself. News that leaves the room in stunned silence. But almost immediately, the elf nobles scoff, brushing off her claims. They say there's no way monsters that strong could show up out of nowhere. But Sasha pushes back, insisting everything she said is real. That's when the Chancellor steps in and says that not long ago, they received a similar report from the Black Motley. And now that two different sources have given the same warning, he calls out Hardy for still refusing to deploy the White Knights, choosing instead to let others clean up the mess. Hardy stays silent for a beat, then calmly announces that he'll personally lead the White Knights to face the dragon threat head-on. After Hardy leaves, Sasha turns to the Chancellor and asks if she can accompany the Knights to the tower. He tells her that it was always the plan, and in fact, she's being sent along as a reward for reporting the situation in the first place. But he warns her that if she's going, she needs to bring one of the powerful artifacts from her father's vault. Without it, she won't be much help in battle. Sasha nods, and later that night, she visits her father to ask for his blessing to use the item. The following morning, Hardy gathers the entire White Knight unit and breaks down the mission strategy. He explains that Sasha will act as their guide, but Sharfat raises an eyebrow, wondering if she can even keep up. Sasha confidently assures them she'll be fine, and Michael steps in to say he'll protect her if things go sideways. Right then, twins Enhia and Kia bring up that Sasha's tagging along on direct orders from the Chancellor, and that she's carrying a rare heirloom from her family. While the twins assume it's because Michael's tight with the Chancellor, Sharfat seems irritated, frustrated that the Queendom's nobles are dragging politics into a military operation. At the same time in the tower, Ellie uses her magic to project the scene for Light. Curious, he asks how Sasha's doing, so Ellie zooms in on her face, catching her marching determinedly through the woods. Light compliments her flawless plan for luring Sasha here and thanks her for pulling it off. As he watches, he notices his hands start to tremble, but it's not fear, it's raw anticipation. The thought of seeing Sasha's face twist with fear and regret once he unleashes his revenge makes his blood boil with excitement. And all he can do now is hope she shows up soon. Meanwhile, in the forest, Charot questions if Sasha even knows where she's going. But she calmly explains that she marked the path during her last visit, pointing out the faint signs scratched into the trees. Just then, she stumbles on a rough patch in the trail, and Michael catches her before she falls. Watching their little moment unfold in the misty woods, Sharfat mutters, wondering how they're managing to flirt in a place like this. Meanwhile, atop the tower, Oyuki senses the White Knights closing in fast. Not long after, the group arrives at the gates, which slowly creak open in response. From deep within the tower, two massive Orthos beasts stomp their way out and head straight into the forest. But they're not alone, and wave after wave of monsters begin spilling out. Charot reaches for his weapon, ready to strike, but Hardy stops him. He reminds them that the real threat is the dragon, and that the adventurous squad they hired will be launching a diversion soon. Suddenly, flares erupt in the forest, drawing the monsters away from the path. Once they're gone, the captain turns to Sasha and asks if those were the only Orthos stationed inside. When she confirms it with a nod, Hardy gives the order to move in, declaring the tower's interior clear except for the dragon. Still, he warns them to stay alert because something could still be lurking inside. To ensure silence during their infiltration, Hardy casts a powerful magic barrier that wipes out all sound around the squad. The sudden, deafening quiet sends a chill down Sasha's spine, and she quietly admits Hardy's reputation for ruthless tactics is well earned. As the elven force charges through the tower entrance, Ellie turns to Light with a smirk, telling him to get ready because the appetizer is about to be served before the real feast. Inside the dark tower, the White Knights suddenly trigger a hidden teleportation circle beneath their feet. In a flash, they're split apart, scattered into different sections of the tower's twisted maze. Watching the chaos unfold, Light leans forward with a cold smile, eager to see each of them claw their way helplessly toward his trap. Mikhail and Sasha suddenly get transported to a lower basement floor, and it doesn't take Mikhail long to realize the whole thing was a setup. Every step of it crafted ahead of time with precision. Sasha immediately asks who planned this, but Mikhail doesn't offer any guesses. He just tells her the truth is waiting at the top of those stairs, and they'll find out soon enough. At the same time, Ellie and Light are quietly observing the scene through a crystal orb. And as the duo begins their climb, Light can barely contain the anticipation, practically buzzing with excitement at the thought of Sasha stepping through that last door and finally seeing who's been pulling the strings all along. At the same time, the elf twins Anhia and Kia are stuck on a completely different floor, shrouded in darkness and trying to figure out what just hit them. They start thinking about regrouping with the others, but before they even get the chance to move, voices echo from behind. Those voices belong to none other than Mira and Ice Heat, casually chatting about how to handle what they call these pathetic elves. Mira shrugs and says Ice Heat can kick back while she takes care of both herself. But Ice Heat shoots back with a smirk, calling her a greedy pig and saying they should each take one of the morons. The elf twins are stunned because no one's ever dared to talk down to them like this, not in their entire lives. But Mira and Ice Heat couldn't care less, and they keep rambling as if the elves aren't even there. Ice Heat throws in a warning, saying she better not get cocky since even a desperate rat might bite if cornered. Mira just scoffs, calling the elves nothing more than buzzing insects, not even worth the trouble. She asks if Ice Heat honestly believes these so-called warriors could take down either of them, and Ice Heat laughs, saying these B-tier wannabes are nowhere near their league, but still they shouldn't toy with their prey too long. That was the final straw, and the twins snap, rage blazing in their eyes as they launch forward without hesitation, shouting that they're the damn submaestros of this continent, and no one gets to label them second-rate. But Mira and Ice Heat casually sidestep their charge mid-air like it was child's play. Undeterred, the twins start ricocheting off the surrounding pillars, blurring like lightning as they come crashing down behind them with a dual strike, only for both attacks to be dodged again, just as effortlessly, and the girls land lightly on the ground, barely phased. Mira lets out a laugh and says the elves are starting to look more like sugar-high flying squirrels than cornered rats, pushing the twins past their limit as they vow to bring the fight straight to their smug faces. At the same time, Sharfat finds himself stranded in total darkness on a completely separate floor. He lets out a long sigh, kicking himself for not spotting the teleport trap sooner, and already dreading the earful he's gonna get from Hardy later. But unlike the rest of the dumbasses, Sharfat instantly senses that he's not alone. He calls out, telling whoever's lurking in the shadows to show themselves and explain what the hell's going on. And stepping out comes Suzu. One glance at her, and he's instantly whipped, drooling like a fool as he starts throwing compliments like candy. Suzu's face instantly sours from his creep energy, but Sharfat ignores it and dramatically asks for her name, saying he's ready to be her loyal knight or whatever cringy nonsense he thinks works. She doesn't even get a chance to reply before her damn gun beats her to it, snapping at Sharfat to zip it and keep it in his pants. It also throws in that Suzu doesn't speak, which clearly just makes things worse. Sharfat's focus immediately shifts because he just realized the gun is sentient. The weapon warns him not to bother remembering its name though, since he won't need it because they're about to ruin his day and everything he holds dear. Sharfat slumps, grumbling to himself that not only did he fall for a basic trap, but now he's stuck fighting a smoke show for no damn reason. Still, he gives it one last try and suggests maybe they could pause the whole trying to kill each other thing and take some time to get to know each other. The gun instantly shuts him down, telling him Suzu's not interested and that he's just not her type. But Sharfat, clearly lacking any form of shame, asks what her type even is, so he can start working on becoming it. Suzu calmly tells the gun she's into short kings with black hair and a thinning hairline. The gun pauses, instantly catching the subtext, and tells her to give it up because Light's already got a harem, and she'll have to wait her turn. That sets her off, and she starts bashing the gun against the nearest pillar while it screams for her to chill. Sharfat, on the other hand, has seen enough, so he drops the flirt act and says he would have loved to claim her as his own toy. But screw it, he'll take what he wants, one way or another. Then, in a flash, he lifts his arm and fires an invisible bolt from a hidden crossbow straight at her. But to his shock, Suzu instantly senses the invisible bolt and dodges with precision, firing a bullet in return. Sharfat deflects it with a flick, impressed that she not only saw through his stealth attack but launched a counter right after. The gun actually praises him too, admitting that not many people can deflect one of her bullets. Sharfat flashes a grin, loading up another bolt, and mutters that this fight's already looking way more fun than he expected. At the same time, the twins are still zipping between the pillars, knowing full well the terrain gives them the upper hand. While darting around at high speed, they launch another round of their wind cutter technique. The girls dodge with ease, but the twins immediately repeat the move, trying to land a clean hit. Mira and Ice Heat dodge again, but this time they're a little more focused, realizing they can't keep underestimating them for too long, so they need to wrap this up. The twins though just keep spamming the same damn move non-stop, so Ice Heat mutters that there's no way they can keep that pace up forever. But the twins fire back with smug grins, saying they could keep this going for hours without even breaking a sweat. Annoying as that might be, their strategy soon changes, and they reposition near one of the pillars and launch an advanced version of their wind cutter, spraying the area with thousands of tiny blades aimed straight at Mira and Ice Heat. The flurry is way harder to dodge, and as the girls are focused on slipping through the gaps, Kia suddenly hurls a dagger that stabs deep into Mira's gut, and Enhia swoops in, slicing her damn arm clean off. The twins land and start laughing like lunatics, saying it won't be long before every last piece of them is lying on the floor. But to their shock, Mira and Ice Heat don't even flinch. Mira casually turns to Ice Heat and asks if she's figured out their power level yet. Ice Heat answers with a bored tone, saying the twins are even weaker than she expected. That hits a nerve, and the twins scream that they're clearly the ones winning. But their voices crack when Mira bends down, picks up her severed arm, and chomps into it like it's lunch. The sight makes the twins freeze in place, unable to process what they just saw. And then Mira decides to up the nightmare and rips off her own head, tossing it around like a toy. The twins scream in disbelief, demanding to know what kind of monster she is. And that's when Mira finally drops the reveal that she and Ice Heat are both ultra-rare level 7,777 cards. The twins stand stunned, refusing to believe something like that could even exist. But before they can wrap their heads around it, they charge again. Only this time, Mira and Ice Heat don't even bother dodging. They take the attacks head-on without blocking, saying it's not even worth the effort. That's when real fear sinks in, so the twins turn back and start running. Mira bursts out laughing like a psycho while Ice Heat calmly charges up a massive heat blast. So Mira shields herself in preparation for the finishing move. Down on the lower floor, Sharfat is staying aggressive, launching bolt after bolt at Suzu, shifting their paths mid-flight and even sending a barrage all at once, hoping something lands. But Suzu weaves through every shot without so much as a scratch, and that just fires him up even more. He grins and tells her she should dump that loser Light and be his girl instead. But that was all Suzu needed to hear. Her eyes start glowing, her body flares with fury, and the rage rolls off her like a storm, fully locked in and ready to blast this creep into dust. At the same time, the elves run straight into a dead end and choose to follow the edge of the area while searching for the exit. But before they can even move, they begin to sense the floor heating up. To their horror, a massive wave of heat crashes into them as Ice Heat fires her scorching blast. The twins realize they are about to be burned alive, so they urgently begin chanting several spells and raise a massive ice wall to shield themselves. To their shock, the ice wall melts instantly, forcing them to summon another one. They keep forming new ice barriers, but before long their mana is completely drained, and their armor starts to warp and melt under the unbearable heat. Moments later, the flames fully engulf them, wiping them from sight, and only then does Ice Heat finally stop. She quickly thinks she may have killed the two fools by accident, but Light had ordered them taken alive. Fortunately, Mira informs her that Ellie placed powerful protective enchantments on them, so these fools would not die. Without that magic, the two elves would have been burned to ashes. The twins lie on the ground, scorched and broken, pleading for mercy, but Mira coldly tells them they will receive the same mercy they showed the humans and uses her tentacles to restrain and silence them, as Light intends to draw out every piece of information before subjecting them to the most devastating pain imaginable. Elsewhere, Sharfat finally understands the gravity of his actions when Suzu fires several rounds into the air before unleashing them all toward the elf. Sharfat runs for his life, desperately trying to evade the incoming fire, but he quickly realizes he is completely outclassed. He turns to block the shots with his own bolts, but it is useless as a storm of bullets tears through his body, leaving him bleeding and barely alive on the ground. Barely conscious, Sharfat pleads for mercy, but the only thing before him is a furious Suzu standing over his body. She is not finished and begins smashing his face with her boot, screaming for him to die. And she would have killed him if the gun had not snapped some sense into her, reminding her that Light wanted to see their full potential before capturing them. The words snap her out of it, and her rage turns into panic, so she immediately drops down, trying to patch Sharfat up so he can still fight, but the gun gently tells her it's too late because he's too messed up to stand, let alone battle. Suzu starts crying, guilt written all over her face, while the gun quietly reassures her that Light won't be mad over an honest mistake. At the same time, on a completely separate floor, Jack finds Must standing alone with his axe and casually tells him that they're supposed to fight, but suggests he just throw in the towel since Jack isn't the type to bully the weak. Must clearly takes offense but keeps his cool, declaring that Jack should feel honored to die at the hands of an elf ranked over level 1500. Jack brushes it off, telling him not to stress because he's an ultra-rare card level 7777. Must scoffs, calling it a ridiculous bluff, and tells him to at least make it believable. But Jack just grins and dares him to check for himself using his appraisal skill. Spotting the hesitation in Must's eyes, Jack mocks him, asking if he even has the skill in the first place. Must finally snaps, claiming he doesn't need to check out some clown, and charges at him with his axe, hoping to end it fast. But Jack smacks the weapon aside like it's nothing. Must is stunned, thinking it had to be a fluke, so he starts swinging relentlessly. Jack effortlessly blocks every hit, and what really throws Must off is that those strikes were supposed to be strong enough to rattle even Captain Hardy. Then, with just his fingers, Jack blasts him straight into the wall. Must crawls out of the crater in complete disbelief, refusing to accept that a human could overpower him. He starts ranting about how humans are inferior and deserve worse than death. That's when he slams his axe into the ground, activating it and revealing that it's a cursed magical weapon. Jack notices instantly that the weapon's draining the boy's soul and life force to boost his strength, but Must doesn't give a damn. He screams at the weapon to take whatever it wants, as long as it gives him enough power to crush this human. Fueled by every last ounce of strength he's got left, Must charges again, but Jack calmly activates his iron armor skill, blocking the strike with just his forearm. Instantly, his whole body gets covered in a dense, metallic shell, and with one punch, he launches Must into the wall, leaving him bloodied and out cold. Jack walks over, lifts him up, and wonders for a second if he went too far. But thanks to Ellie's magic, the kid's still breathing. Upstairs, the final white knight left standing is Captain Hardy, who now finds himself face to face with the chaotic and unhinged Nezuna, who flashes a wild grin as she draws her blade, ready for one hell of a fight. Hardy waves her off like she's just some wannabe playing dress-up. But Nezuna doesn't budge and sharply demands his attention. He lifts an eyebrow, half smirking, and asks if she's seriously the one they sent to deal with him. She nods with zero hesitation, calmly stating her master's orders to take him down. That's when Hardy finally starts paying attention, and his eyes narrow as he senses the pressure rolling off her. She might look like a kid, but the power radiating from her is anything but childish. And if someone even stronger is backing her, that means a serious player is moving behind the scenes. Still, he doesn't fully register how far out of his depth he really is, and he draws his sword, ready to test her. Nezuna also grips hers tight without a flicker of fear, and that's when he notices the faint magical glow rippling across her armor. As he studies her closely, Mizuna's already swinging. Sick of waiting, she hoists the blade and slashes, sending a sharp gust of wind hurtling at him. And in a blink, it slices through the wall and Hardy's arm, dropping him to the ground. Nezuna blinked, confused, so she cautiously stepped closer to the fallen elf general and gave him a light poke with her sword. And when he didn't move, Nezuna's expression turned anxious. That's when Ellie contacted her, scolding her hard for wrecking the damn tower. Nezuna tries to play dumb as usual, but Ellie's not having it. She reminds her that the whole tower was built using Ellie's own mana, reinforced walls and all, so that Nezuna wouldn't accidentally nuke it. Nezuna mumbles out an apology, but Ellie tells her point blank that if she can't get her strength under control, she won't be able to carry out Light's orders. Feeling guilty, Nezuna agrees to rein herself in. Meanwhile, behind her, Hardy secretly patches himself up with some hidden healing magic. She stares, confused that he's still breathing after getting hit full force, so Ellie explains she's been keeping him alive using her magic from a distance. Hardy, now back in the fight, stands tall, and Nezuna braces for another round, but this time promising to keep it in check. Hardy now takes her seriously and unleashes his true strength right from the get-go. He activates a silent field, throwing Nezuna off. He then explains that the spell applies a debuff, slowly draining her energy and funneling that power into him instead. Then he shapes that stolen mana into an invisible, soundless blade, explaining that its size constantly shifts, making it impossible to predict. Nezuna immediately puts her sword away and gets into a focused stance. Hardy narrows his eyes, thinking maybe she's trying to outmaneuver his wild swings with precise movement. Still, he notices her slight hesitation and figures she's bound to slip up if she rushes in. But out of nowhere, she flashes right in front of him before he can even blink and slams him straight into the tower wall. This time though, instead of blowing it apart, the wall just ends up covered in cracks. So Nezuna throws her hands up in victory, proud of her self-control. But Ellie's voice cuts in, still yelling at her for messing up the structure since now she has to burn even more mana to fix it. Nezuna snaps back, shouting that she's being way too annoying. Ellie freezes, baffled at where the hell she even learned to talk like that. And Nezuna casually mentions that the palace maids are always griping about her behind her back. Light then steps in and tells Ellie to go easy on Nezuna. After all, she did just pull off her mission. Reluctantly, Ellie lets it slide and tells Nezuna to bring Hardy back already. Then she turns to Light and apologizes for snapping, admitting that she only wanted to drill some discipline into Nezuna for his sake. Light then gently asks if she's okay, especially after burning through so much magic to patch up the tower. Ellie insists she's fine, brushing it off with a smile, saying it's just her legs that started shaking from the mana drain. Still, Light doesn't look convinced. Just then, Ayuki chimes in, reminding them that Sasha and Michael are about to walk in. Light straightens up, tells everyone to focus, and slips his dark mask on, fully ready to face Sasha and finally settle the score. Right outside the throne room, Michael leans towards Sasha and promises he'll protect her, no matter what. That calms her down just enough for her to reach for the door, only for it to creak open on its own. Inside, Light greets them both calmly, and the two step in and walk toward him. As they draw closer, Sasha's expression shifts as she suddenly realizes that this masked man is the same guy who once showed her his burned face. Dark welcomes her with a casual tone, prompting Michael to glance over and ask if they've met before. Sasha quickly brushes it off, saying she only saw him once, then glares at Dark, accusing him of acting way too familiar. She tells him to shut his mouth and stop pretending like their old friend. But Light hits back by mentioning every bit of kindness she ever showed him back then. Then, without warning, he pulls off the mask, and Sasha freezes. Her mind blanks as she stares, realizing the scars are completely gone. She stammers, asking what happened to them, and Light calmly reveals that they were never real to begin with, just an illusion. He then adds that he stopped his body from aging altogether, just so he'd never forget how much it hurt when she betrayed him. While Sasha struggles to process the truth, Michael turns to her, confused, and asks if Light is really the same maestro their team supposedly killed 3 years ago. But Light cuts in, revealing that after the ambush, he was flung to the abyss's lowest floor through a teleport trap. And from there, he survived using the power of his maids to climb back and plan every piece of his revenge. After laying out his whole backstory, Light finally turns to Sasha and tells her straight that this entire tower was crafted for one reason: his perfect revenge. He calmly asks how she feels about that, but Sasha just stands there in silence. Her fiancé, though, suddenly bursts out laughing like a maniac. He grins at her and says this is their golden chance to claim the reward for clearing the tower and capturing Light alive. Sasha immediately points out that if Light walks back through the capital gates, it'll expose her for failing to kill him years ago. But Michael waves it off, saying the higher-ups will likely forgive her screw-up if she hands him over now. His words seem to light a fire under her, so Sasha spins toward Light with a smug grin, mocking him for still clinging to revenge, and she gets into position, ready to fight. Light calmly grabs his staff and tells his maids not to interfere because this one's personal. As he steps down to meet Sasha face to face, he congratulates her on the engagement and promises to offer her his revenge as a wedding gift. She scoffs, laughing in his face, thinking no human could ever match an elf's power. She brags that she recently hit level 500, but Light barely reacts, visibly unimpressed. Oblivious to his indifference, Sasha smugly pulls out a rare item gifted by her father. Light's curiosity sparks when he spots the ocarina, and the moment she plays it, 3 massive angels appear before him. Confident she can't lose now, Sasha grins and commands the attacker angel to finish him. The creature lunges, smashing the ground, and Light leaps back, surprised that it actually broke through the tower floor. He fires back with his staff, but the second angel blocks the blast with a glowing holy barrier. Light scowls and ramps up his magic, finally shattering the shield with raw force. But instead of blowing the angel to bits, his attack only manages to destroy its arms. That's when the third angel steps in and heals both of its companions with divine magic. Watching how they move, Light chuckles to himself, immediately recognizing the setup. a full trio with a striker, a tank, and a healer. Across the room, Sasha is absolutely stunned. Her jaw drops as she watches a level 15 human stand his ground against her family's sacred Phantasma class summon. Then Light smirks, looking her dead in the eye, and calmly reveals his level 999, leaving Sasha genuinely afraid. Michael spins around and casually tells her to relax, saying there's no way Light's legit because nobody's ever reached that kind of level in recorded history. She eases up and commands her angels to launch another strike, but Light instantly wipes them all out using a crushing dust press. Without missing a beat, he chains it with a shadow dance and a fire squall combo that incinerates their bodies, making sure they can't regenerate. As a finishing blow, he rains down a barrage of ice arrows to eliminate what's left. But Sasha just smiles and plays her ocarina, bringing them all back like nothing happened. She smugly mentions that she can revive them endlessly without even dipping into her mana reserves. That's when Light realizes her ocarina is way more annoying than he first thought. He blinks in right in front of her, driving his staff toward the instrument to smash it. But Michael suddenly intercepts with a shield, warning him to back off. Light gives him props for blocking that strike, but Michael corrects him that he didn't just block it. And the moment he says that, the shield pulses and sends Light flying across the field. Stunned by the force, Light demands to know how that's even possible, so Michael calmly reveals that the shield isn't just any artifact. It's a Phantasma-grade relic that absorbs enemy power and throws it right back at them with even greater force. Michael then slams the shield into the ground, breaking the spell that was restraining the angels, and explains that it also boosts the stats of both its wielder and nearby allies. Sasha laughs in Light's face for thinking he had any shot at winning this. While Michael is convinced the match is over, she steps up with a smug grin, asking him how it feels to be completely cornered. And that's what finally makes Light lose it and start laughing uncontrollably. Michael and Sasha both pause, thinking he's snapped from the pressure, but Light straightens up and tells her she's dead wrong if she thinks she's ever been close to scaring him. And with a wild grin and burning eyes, he declares that he's about to show her what real despair looks like. Ellie and Aoyuki both panic and try to stop him. But it's too late because Light undoes the seal on his soul that had been holding back his true form. Suddenly, pitch-black chains start swirling around him, radiating a terrifying energy, prompting Michael to yell at Sasha to retreat. Right then, Light calls out code 999, and the command summons a massive weapon rack while breaking every chain holding him down. His old staff reshapes itself into a brand new X-class weapon Gungnir. The moment Gungnir lands in his hand, Ellie and Aoyuki freeze in horror. The dense, dark pressure clears out, and Light steps forward with a deathly calm, telling Sasha that now she'll understand what true fear really means. And for the first time, Sasha and Michael actually panic as Light slowly walks toward them. Michael urgently tells Sasha to deploy her angels again, and without hesitation, she does. The attacker-type angel rushes forward, slamming its weapon down at Light, but he casually breaks it in half. And the look of horror on the angel's face says it all. Next, the defender-type angel raises a divine shield to block him, but Light swings his new staff and smashes right through it like it's nothing. Witnessing how effortlessly he's dismantling them, Michael yells for Sasha to keep summoning more to slow him down. Light just laughs, ready to watch them scramble and struggle all they want. But in that moment, a jolt of pain shoots through his hand. He glances down and sees Gungnir's dark aura scorching his skin, eating away at his flesh. He knows the weapon's power is too much for a human to handle for long, but he doesn't give a damn. If losing his whole arm is the price for revenge, he'll gladly pay it. This time, Sasha goes all in and activates her ultimate ability, fusing all three angels into a single supreme archangel. She gives the command to fire a tactical class spell meant to erase Light completely. The archangel lifts its weapon high and summons a radiant golden spear, and Sasha proudly declares it as her strongest skill, Holy Javelin. Watching the divine power gathering, Michael grins, thinking that once he marries Sasha, he'll inherit the ocarina and all its terrifying abilities. The archangel then hurls the golden spear with crushing force, and Sasha laughs as it barrels toward Light. As it lands, she smugly says goodbye, only for the whole thing to vanish in an instant. Light stands there completely unfazed, having neutralized the javelin like it was a joke. He mocks Sasha for thinking she ever had the strength to harm him. Panicked, she orders the archangel to strike again, but every single blow shatters on contact as Light walks through them like a force of nature. He calmly asks if she's already out of options, and Sasha desperate launches a rapid volley of javelins, hoping quantity will succeed where quality failed. But Light blocks each one effortlessly, never dropping the grin on his face as he marches toward her like a death sentence. Sasha finally loses it, shrieking at him to stay away. She fires off every last bit of magic she has left, but nothing touches him, and nothing even slows him down. Light just laughs, telling her to try harder, and warns her that if this is the best she's got, then she's going to die right here. Shortly after, Light releases a colossal phantom from his weapon, drowning the already panicked elves in an even deeper surge of fear. Sasha scrambles to call forth her archangel, but the phantom cuts through it effortlessly, like it was never even there. Mikhail shouts at her to try again, but even when she raises the ocarina and plays it, the item stays silent. Her panic spikes as she watches her cherished artifact flicker, turn pitch black, and then crumble to ash right in her palms. Light scoffs, mocking them for putting their faith in such a flimsy trinket. But Mikhail lashes back, insisting there's no way any weapon could possibly erase a treasure ranked as Phantasma class. That's when Light reveals the truth that his Gungnir isn't just any weapon. It's a Genesis class relic, a whole different beast. Mikhail scoffs, refusing to believe someone like him could possibly wield something that legendary. Nervous, Sasha ducks behind him and tries to play it off, saying Light just got lucky and the ocarina must have been under too much stress. Mikhail backs her up with confidence, saying he'll just block whatever comes next with his shield. But when Light strikes again with his staff, the attack shatters the shield instantly and sends both elves crashing to the floor. Mikhail tries to stand, his body aching, but one thought hits him that Light has to be a legendary maestro. Light just smirks and says he doesn't even know what a maestro is, despite hearing the term thrown around by the 9 races. Realizing how outclassed he is, Mikhail admits he's planning to retreat, but plays it off like he's being generous, leaving to make a report to his kingdom. He pulls out a high-tier teleportation item called the Skyrunner Wing, hoping to escape the tower. But the feather doesn't react at all, so Light explains calmly that his tower blocks all teleportation magic. Mikhail refuses to believe it because teleportation blocking fields aren't even supposed to exist. That's when Light calls out to Ellie. She steps forward and explains that while teleportation magic may be impossible for most, she built her own teleportation blocker after analyzing the Abyss's dungeon core. Hearing that, Mikhail freezes because he can't process the fact that someone has actually researched something that dangerous. And with escape now off the table, Light casually asks if the elves plan to keep running anyway. But Mikhail doesn't surrender, and he's certain the other White Knights will show up soon, and once his level 3000 Captain Hardy arrives, he's convinced Light will be obliterated. He starts laughing and throwing around taunts again, believing his rescue is inevitable, but Light knows exactly how to deal with someone this delusional. To shut down every last hope Mikhail has, he calls his warriors forward, and they drag in the broken, defeated bodies of the other White Knights. Before long, Light's servants stroll in, dragging the unconscious elves behind them, leaving Mikhail and Sasha completely speechless. Right then, Jack steps into the room and immediately tenses up at the sight of the sinister weapon in Light's hand. The maids grow visibly uneasy too, but Light casually tells them not to panic and that everything's under control. He then walks straight up to Mikhail and mockingly asks what happened to all that arrogance. Just like that, Mikhail's cocky mask drops and he drops to his knees, hands flat on the floor. He starts sucking up, offering to help Light take over the entire Elven Queendom using his political smarts, completely blindsiding Sasha. He tries to tempt Light with a pitch for power, but Light cuts him off cold, saying he doesn't give a damn about their pathetic little kingdom. Then he makes it clear that he's here for revenge, not thrones. So Mikhail quickly shifts gears and begs for his life, and he insists that he had no part in the 9 races' mission to kill Light 3 years ago, and dumps all the blame on Sasha instead. She's crushed, watching her fiancé throw her under the bus without hesitation. But Mikhail acts like he's never even cared about her. He treats her like a random nobody who dared to climb the ladder by clinging to him. Sasha, heartbroken, reminds him of all those times he swore he loved her. But Mikhail just shrugs it off like it was all a lie, leaving her utterly destroyed. Then, with zero shame, he turns to Light and offers to kill Sasha himself. But Light ignores him and calls Ellie to take the stage. As Ellie starts walking toward the elves, her eyes burn with rage. She calmly tells them how long she's dreamed of making them bleed for every sin they committed. She promises a slow, agonizing death. And that's when Mikhail starts whining for mercy. He then flips the switch again, acting like he's suddenly in awe of Light, and praises him like he's some divine savior. Ellie just smirks, instantly seeing through his pathetic, bootlicking performance. Then when Mikhail realizes no one's buying his bullshit, he does what cowards do best and bolts. But Ellie instantly casts a strategic class spell called Dorn Fessel, summoning brutal thorned vines that lash around his body and slam him to the ground. She explains just how dangerous the spell is, and Mikhail's eyes widen in horror when he realizes she did it without even saying a word. Ellie grins darkly and tightens the vines, making him howl like a dog in a meat grinder. Then she yanks him forward, slaps a hand on his forehead, and starts forcefully scanning his memories. Mikhail panics and begs her to stop, but she fries his brain like scrambled eggs while ripping out every last bit of information. Watching Mikhail writhe in agony, Sasha starts shaking with fear, so Light turns to her and coldly reminds her that she's next. Trembling, Sasha spins around for one final glance at her fallen allies before locking eyes with Light again. She tries to soften him, reminiscing about the time they spent together. She plays the role of a guardian, claiming she was always the one shielding him from the cruelty of their world. Then she tries to justify her actions, saying she was only trying to protect him from Geru's abuse. But Light cuts through her act without blinking. He calmly reminds her of the smug tone she had and how much she enjoyed the idea of crushing a powerless human like him. As Light calls out her fake sincerity, Sasha scrambles for a new excuse, blaming everything on Drago and claiming she was just following orders. She tries to convince Light that the suffering he endured in the abyss wasn't really her fault. Reaching even further, she brings up the past, reminding him that he once had feelings for her. She even offers to be his intimate partner now if he just lets her live. Suddenly, Ayuki storms in, furious that Sasha would dare try seducing her master like he's some pathetic, desperate creep. With venom in her voice, she threatens to feed Sasha to her monsters and bring her back just to make her suffer again and again for daring to disrespect Light. But before she can act, Light calmly tells her to stand down. Ayuki takes a breath, then steps back in obedience. Light shifts his gaze back to Sasha, his voice sharp. He tells her that no matter what lies she spins, his goal is the same. He'll uncover the truth behind their world and unlock the full potential of his power. Until that day comes, she can rot away in the abyss, chained to Geru, left to share his miserable end. As he turns to leave, Sasha desperately calls out one last time. But Light responds by firing an arrow straight into her leg, giving her a taste of the same pain she once gave him. Then, without another word, he instructs Mira to finish things, so Mira's beasts happily devour her wholly. Choking back panic, Sasha blurts out that all she ever wanted was to find her own happiness. But Light doesn't even blink, and he coldly wonders how someone could chase happiness by torturing and humiliating others. With that, Sasha's fate is sealed, and Mira clamps down and rips her apart without mercy. But as soon as it's done, Light stumbles, drained from using the cursed weapon. His body starts to break down under its strain. Before it destroys him completely, he activates his soul seal once more, barely managing to subdue its raging power. A while later, the maids gently carry him back to the abyss so he can recover. Outside the room, Nazuna turns to Ellie, asking if Light's gonna make it. Ellie hesitates, admitting she doesn't really know. That makes Nazuna question how their master ended up this badly hurt in the first place. So Ellie starts explaining that despite grinding his gacha non-stop for 3 straight years in the abyss's thick mana, Light only managed to pull one ultra-rare weapon, the Genesis Gungnir. She and Mei tried everything to unlock its full potential, but the damn thing was way too unstable, even for them. That's why Light had to rally all 4 of his level 9,999 maids just to seal away its true power. And now, inside the tower, he undid just one of those 4 seals, and even that was enough to shred his own arm, showing just how brutal the weapon's pressure really was. Elsewhere in his room, Light slowly opens his eyes to find Mei standing right in front of him. She breathes a sigh of relief, thankful he's still alive. As Light sits up, he recalls blacking out inside the tower. He tries to get out of bed to return to work, but Mei quickly stops him, asking him to rest just a little longer. She starts remembering the first moment they met, when she saw the tears in his eyes, and says that ever since then, she's done everything in her power to help him reach his dreams. But now, she tells him those dreams aren't worth dying over. Not when he's got a whole kingdom of people who believe in him and need him to survive. Meanwhile, deep in the Elven Nation, the Royal Chancellor reports that the entire squad of White Knights has gone silent. one of the elf nobles throws out the possibility that they've been wiped out, which pisses off the elf queen to no end. She refuses to believe anyone could take down Hardy, but the noble reminds her that it's been 2 full days with no word from him. Just then, a scout crashes into the council room, gasping for breath. He shouts that an army of dragons has gathered just outside the kingdom's walls. Everyone rushes to the windows, only to see a terrifying swarm of dragons circling their skies. The nobles snap at the guards, furious that something like this slipped past their defenses. But before anyone can answer, Ellie's voice echoes through their minds, using telepathy to introduce herself as the Wicked Witch of the Towering Monolith. She tells them that she received the intruders who stepped into her domain, and unless their queen shows herself now, she'll reduce their entire kingdom to ashes. And to make her point, Ellie orders her dragons to rain down fireballs outside the city, setting the nearby forest ablaze and turning it into a hellish inferno, leaving everyone in the court frozen in fear. Then Ellie gives them just 3 minutes to bring out their ruler. Then she descends from the sky and lands smack in the center of the Elven Palace garden, where she's instantly surrounded by every royal guard on the premises. But just before things can erupt into a fight, the Elf Queen herself appears before Ellie and formally introduces herself as Lif. She coldly tells Ellie that she won't tolerate her insolence and commands her to leave the Elven nation immediately. But Ellie calmly fires back, reminding her that it was the Queen's own White Knights who disrespected her first by storming into her tower uninvited. At that, the Queen stiffens and demands to know what became of them. Ellie ignores the question and instead turns it around, asking why the Queen sent her knights in the first place. She accuses her of trying to ransack her sacred relics. The Queen explodes with fury, shouting that her noble race would never stoop to such disgraceful crimes. But Ellie clearly isn't buying it, and she steps forward without hesitation. Alarmed, the royal guards spring into action, but Ellie immediately unleashes a swarm of vampiric trees that pierce through the guards and drain every last drop of their life force. As the Queen watches in horror, Ellie smugly explains the terrifying power behind the spell she just cast. Panicking, the Queen bolts and tries to escape, but Ellie lashes out her vines and drags her right back. With the brambles wrapped around her, Ellie slaps a hand on her head and begins a brutal scan of her memories to check if she's telling the truth. After digging deep, Ellie confirms that the Queen wasn't lying about the knights, but her expression darkens as she uncovers wave after wave of elitist, racist ideology buried inside her mind. Furious, Ellie demands the immediate release of every enslaved human still trapped within the queendom. Then she issues a chilling decree. The elves are never to enslave another soul again, or face total annihilation. With that, she leaves the Queen shattered and stunned. At the same time in the abyss, May brings Light up to speed on their success, liberating humans from the surrounding nations. She adds that the Mohawk crew is doing their best, but they're struggling to support the sudden influx of rescued people. Light rises from his seat, ready to help, but May gently urges him to take it easy. Light brushes her concern aside, assuring her that he's more than capable. Moments later, he appears in the main hall and greets the other 3 maids waiting for him. After that, Light heads to the human settlement near the base of the tower, where the Mohawk gang is hard at work, trying to get everyone settled. Watching over the peaceful scene, Light listens as his maids explain how they've been working non-stop to transform the area into a thriving, self-reliant city. Eventually, Light admits that after learning the truth about their world, he wasn't sure what his next step would be. But now, he feels certain he wants to protect this world, no matter how twisted it might seem, because there's still kindness and beauty left in it. Still, he knows that eliminating prejudice and hatred won't be easy. Light quietly wonders if his vision is too ambitious, but his maids quickly reassure him that they'll stand by him through it all. Surrounded by people he can trust, Light feels ready to face whatever comes next. But this is the end of Season 1 of this anime. So don't forget to like and subscribe to help me continue.